So I'm sitting at the bar and I'm sitting there, I'm defeated, I'm pissed. And I was about to leave. I kind of go to like a corner by the hallway where the restroom is. Door opens up and it's Jerry Seinfeld.
No.
I swear to God. I was just like, I was like stunned like that, right? And he goes, yep, it's me.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Josh Lustig podcast, where we explore the stories behind the success, the setbacks, and the moments that shape extraordinary people. Today's guest is someone who transformed his personal heartbreak into a powerful platform, and he built one of the most impactful interview shows in the country. He sat across from billionaires, cultural icons, and business titans. His podcast, called The Passionate Few, has become a go-to destination for inspiring conversations and a lot of breakthrough moments. But before all the million-view interviews and videos and all his viral success, Omar was at rock bottom. He was heartbroken, broke, and honestly just searching for purpose. And from that low point, he took radical action that would change his life forever. In this episode, Omar Elattar shares the raw, behind-the-scenes story of how rejection became his fuel, how boldness became a superpower, and how his relentless vision has turned into real-world impact around the country. Get ready. This one's packed with lessons in mindset, manifestation, creative outreach, and mastering your own narrative. Let's dive right in with Omar. So welcome to the show, Omar.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh. It's fun to turn the tables and be in the hot seat today.
Absolutely. Well, okay, I'm really curious. This is for me. So when you first started the podcast, it's my understanding that it kind of did come out of a relationship heartbreak scenario. Yes. Maybe take us back to like when that happened. What's going on in the brain of Omar, and why did you decide to do a podcast?
You know, so it's funny. It was an evolution of ideas. Originally in my career, I was into skateboarding, right? So I was always the type of person who like wanted to get paid to play, right? To love what I do for a living. Because I grew up in an environment where everyone around me, whether they had money or didn't have money, was complaining about Monday, right? Sunday night, the anxiety we all get Sunday nights. And so I swore to myself when I was a little kid that I would, whatever it took, I would not have anxiety on Sunday nights, right? Like I wanted to do something that I enjoyed with people I enjoyed. So that's like the first part of it. And then in my early 20s, let me go back to my teenage years. From my teens to my early 20s, I wanted to be a professional skateboarder more than anything in life. No. I skated all day, every day. And as I started to get good, I got into the mix of professional skateboarders, and I started getting to travel and go all over the country. I got in the mix with Rob Dyrdek at the Fantasy Factory. I started getting free stuff from Nike. And so I was in trajectory of the dream I had imagined. But for whatever reason, it didn't come to fruition. I never turned pro, but I tasted it. And it's important to acknowledge that, because before I got into the podcast, there was a huge fire in me to like be around greatness, be part of greatness, right? Like that was, fuming inside of me.
Like the dream.
The dream. I wanted to live the dream, right? More than money or any of that. I wanted the dream. I wanted to wake up and be like, oh my God, holy cow. Like I get to do something fun. Yes. Like I won. I don't have to slave at something I hate for 40, 50 years. And then that came crashing down in my early 20s. And I was like, shoot, what am I going to do? Right? The skateboarding dream died. Like you have to accept the writing on the wall. Ed Milet talked about the fact that he ran into a similar period before he ended up doing really well, where he wanted to be a professional baseball player. Mm-hmm. And so you find yourself with all this ambition, and there was the momentum of like, oh, it could happen. And then it doesn't. And so then I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, got into solar, started knocking door to door, and then I worked at Tesla. And then the heartbreak started because when I was working at Tesla, I, was very frustrated because I didn't live the dream. Mm-hmm. And I was making money in sales because I met a guy at a Tony Robbins seminar. He was making multiple six figures. I was like, what do you do? He said, I knock doors. So that day I was like, all right, I'll sign up. Like whatever it takes to make money. Yeah. So I got into knocking doors, did well in solar. Shout out Brandon Holmes and Vivint Solar. And got recruited to Tesla. And then at Tesla, I started doing well. But that was right before the podcast, in a time of life where I had a mix of inspiration and desperation.
Mm.
And it was just fuming inside of me. And lo and behold, I was dating a girl at the time. And I told this on Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street's podcast. But basically what happened was she broke up with me.
Mm.
And I was in a place where I was frustrated. I was in my, mid-20s at the time. And I started seeing everyone around me doing well. My sister was always like academically studious. So she was doing well. Like there was just everybody around me was doing well. And I'm the one guy who wanted to be a pro skater who's now knocking in the hot heat to sell solar panels to people who don't want me there, for $30,000 for 100% commission and like selling Tesla. I just felt very frustrated. And so I was in this depressed time and
you're making good money at the time, or you're making some money,
relatively speaking, but not really.
Yeah. So you're doing something you don't really love. You're not making the money that justifies doing what if you're making $5 million a year, you'd be like, oh, hell yeah, I'll do this because but there's something inside you that like, hey, I'm meant for more than just this.
I'm meant for more. And my ambition was, the best thing I could be in the vehicle I was in was, employee of the month, right? Sales rep of the month at Tesla. That was it. There was nothing, maybe become a sales manager.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, I'm not going to go to the C-suite at Tesla, right?
Yeah. There's no way that Omar's getting in the history books by doing that.
Exactly. And you have to understand, I was just part of an MTV show. I was like traveling all over the country. Like I was in the mix of all this epicness. And then now I'm literally like knocking doors and selling Teslas. And no disrespect. Like I love the companies. I love the mission of them, but I just knew I was meant for more. And so I was communicating this frustration to my ex-girlfriend at the time, probably for way too long. And before that, I was always, relatively speaking, a ladies' man, and I had never had a girl that I was like super in love with or like she was the one. And I thought this girl was that. And so I gave my heart and soul to her, wanted to marry her, like the whole thing. And one day she calls me point blank and wants to end the relationship just like that. No, and you have to understand, this is like months before I was thinking about escalating it to a marriage situation. Like I was very like all in with her.
You had already made up your mind that you were going to go down that route.
Yes.
But you had not discussed it necessarily?
Well, no, we had discussed it, but I hadn't done anything about it. But it was like, I was, in my mind, sold. Yeah. Yes, this is what I want. And one day I remember I was at the gym and I got this weird feeling of anxiety in my stomach. And I was thinking about leaving Tesla and I was just evaluating a lot of my life and what I want to do. And I just get this weird knot in my stomach. Couldn't figure out why. And like 30 minutes later, I'm walking out of the gym and I get a call from her and she doesn't want to discuss it. She doesn't want to back and forth. She doesn't want to give it another chance. Just point blank, cold turkey. I can't do this. I'm out. Just done. Just like that. And in my head, dude, I remember I was just heartbroken.
Oh, man, of course.
I couldn't understand why. She didn't want to talk about it. And in my head, I'm like, is she cheating on me? It's just, is it,
Oh, yeah, here comes the spiral, right?
Yeah, the spiral and the uncertainty. And she doesn't want to talk about it. And then she gave me the cold treatment of like, I don't have time to talk about it. I'm at work right now, but I just had to tell you. And that was it. And there was no, so in my head, all these millions of questions. I'm like, what? Everything was fine. So, like for the longest time, everything was great. And I just remember just sitting there and I'm like, my life sucks. My job sucks. The one thing that was going good was her in my mind. And so here I am. Now she left me. And I remember sitting on the stairs at the gym, right outside of it. I remember the exact spot and just thinking to myself, what the freak is my life? This, like, I just can't.
Like the one piece that you were happy with.
Correct.
Now is just rug pull, no longer there.
Correct. So I quit my job at Tesla. A couple of days later, I felt like I had to do something radical. I don't know what to do. And then I start self-sabotaging for like a month. I start, drinking and smoking and just lost. I go to this like downward spiral. And then I'm down to my last $850. I remember that. And I'm like in my late 20s with $850. I know a little bit different than your situation in your late 20s. And I remember sitting there just like, man, like how did this happen? Like, what? Wasn't I just touring all over the country, just getting free stuff from Nike and like pursuing my dream? Like I just could not understand. I'm a good dude. I have good intentions. I have good skill sets. And
kind of like my life really shouldn't look like this on paper
at all. Like what is going on?
Yeah.
And And I remember I hired a life coach with my last $850. It was like $1,000. And I said, look, I don't have 1,000, but I sent him a screenshot of my bank account. I was like, I will empty it. Like, just all I ask is like, I need help. Like, I knew the money was going to be spent anyways. I'll figure something out. So I was like, might as well invest in myself.
Yeah. Better here than the bar tonight.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. Because I had done that plenty of times. And I was $30,000 in debt at the time. And I invested in this coach, Dave Thorpe. And I tell him about what happened, and he goes, well, first off, congratulations. I was like, what? And he goes, congratulations. You're one step closer to your destiny. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, think about it. That girl just pieced out of your life. You guys aren't married. You don't have kids. You have no financial obligation to it. You got out, if you ask me, you got out unscathed. You know how many women do that to men when they're married with kids and da-da-da? And I go, well, I guess you're right, but it still sucks, And he goes, Omar, let me ask you. He goes, if life was perfect, what would happen next?
If life were perfect, what would happen next?
Correct. That was the first time in my life I ever entertained that possibility. He goes, Omar, if life was perfect, what would happen next? And I remember my brain just exploded because most of us, you hear that, and most of us never entertain that possibility. We all assume we have to, in some manner or another, settle, right?
Yeah.
In some fashion.
Yeah, like most can't even fathom the idea, like that
Correct.
could happen, so I'm not even going to go there.
Correct.
So you can't even answer the question.
Correct. So you live in this, like, well, let's just make the best of what's in front of us. And most people spend their whole life in that space. And not saying that, the aim is to have a perfect life, but at least contextualize in your mind of what it would look like so you can get as close as possible.
Yeah, you're not going to hit a target that you can't see.
Bingo. Yeah, I think Les Brown says the problem that most people have is that they don't aim too high and miss; they aim too low and hit.
That's hard.
And so I said, I don't know. He goes, well, let's figure that out. So I got a pen and paper, and I started doing this exercise. And I said, if life was perfect, he made me close my eyes, and I started brainstorming. And I said, if life was perfect, I would inspire millions of people. I would make millions of dollars, and I would surround myself with some of the most inspiring people in the world. Now you can see how fast forward that led to the podcast and the business and all that.
Yeah,
but at the time, I didn't know that.
Right, yeah. You didn't know that you were going to interview Ed Milet, Patrick Bet-David, Grant Cardone, John Paul DeJoria,
right. Nope.
Insert 100 other billionaires, millionaires. Dude, like that's a crazy rap sheet that you got going on.
Yeah, or even start a business from it or get into affiliate marketing or online. I had no idea any of that. And nor was the idea a podcast. Like I never even articulated the word podcast at that time. I just had the vision of the sensations I wanted to feel, right? And so he said, if life was perfect, what would happen next? And that was always the reference point. And so we wrote down that exact thing. I would make millions of dollars, I would inspire millions of people, and I would surround myself with the most inspiring people in the world. And I said, okay, how do I do that? And he goes, well, don't worry about that. Just worry about the what first. So,
like, don't worry about how you're going to get there.
Correct.
Just set the goal, set the dream.
Yeah, step one.
Look at the vision as step one.
Yeah, he told me you can go from LA to New York only seeing 20 feet of headlight in front of you at a time.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can travel the whole earth. You can make, like yourself, you can have all the success in business where on the end it looks incredible, but on the actual day-to-day of how it happened, it was just 20 minutes at a time, 20 minutes of effort at a time. Right?
Yeah, and if you start focusing on the how when you're dreaming, you're going to reduce your dreams to the size of your current mindset.
Correct.
You're trying to expand your mindset.
Correct.
And you start having all these objections of why I can't do this. So that was an interesting framework.
Yeah, because you have no reference point of it, right? And the game of life is outworking your beliefs. You essentially have to earn your way out of your belief levels, right?
Earn your way out of your belief levels.
Correct.
Like that.
Yeah, because think about it, everybody's limitation is their beliefs. Is their beliefs. For example, you've had some awesome success in business. I guarantee you there was a time that, 10 years ago, if I told you you'd be in the situation you are now, you wouldn't have fathomed it, right?
Right.
But at the same time, now that you've experienced that, now you've earned your way out of that belief. So you go, well, what else could I do?
Yeah, it's a little easier to believe the next unbelievable thing because you're like, hey, I have a track record. I didn't used to think that this was possible. Now, hey, we're here.
You've proved to your subconscious that you can do things beyond its current ability, right? And once you learn that, you can never unlearn that. That's exactly right. And so this leads to the podcast, but I just want to give the audience full context of like the what was brewing underneath.
Oh, I love this story. I love that you're and thank you for being vulnerable about like the emotions behind it, because I think a lot of people tell a story and they don't go deep on what you're actually feeling.
Contextualizing exactly.
Because I guarantee you, people listening, there's somebody right now that's in the middle of a breakup. Somebody right now that's like feeling like shit about their life and who they are and their belief system. And your story is extremely inspiring.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. And yeah, for me at the time, it was, like I said, a combination of inspiration and desperation. And I started doing this exercise with Dave. Shout out Dave Thorpe. And he's coaching me through this exercise. And then he goes, okay, so how are we going to do this? And I go, well, I don't know. And he goes, well, if you did know, right?
Goes, I don't know. And then he said, if you did know,
well,
like,
if you
what
did
would
know,
you say?
Right? Yeah. That's a cool trick, by the way. And it worked. And he said, well, if you did know, what would you do? I said, well, maybe I could be a radio show host or maybe a news anchor host. He goes, yeah, but that might take a couple of years and some effort. He goes, is there anything we could control like today? Right? Which is, we talked about that yesterday, right? The imperfect, immediate action. I learned that from Dave. He goes, is there anything we could do today? I was like, maybe. He goes, was there anything we could do like right now? And I was like, well, I don't know. Well, if you did know, what would you do right now? And I said, well, I don't know. Maybe I could record a video on Instagram. He goes, well, what about YouTube? It's free. It's easy.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He goes, well, why don't we make a YouTube channel right now? So I was like, okay. So I take out my laptop and I make a YouTube channel.
Not tomorrow, not next week.
Just right now.
Just right now. Just do it right now.
And I go, well, I don't have a photo. I don't know what to call it. He goes, just do that. Do that later. Don't just, worry about that later. Let's just make the account. So I make the account. And what he's doing is he's getting like little drops of action just to happen, just to prove to the subconscious that you can move stuff. So right then and there, I make a YouTube channel. And then he's like, okay, what do you want your first video to be? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe like, I could do like, I don't know, like a selfie video. And he goes, well, according to this paper, you said you want to make millions of dollars. You want to inspire millions of people. And you want to surround yourself with inspiring people. Is that right? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay. Do you know anybody inspiring you could do a video with today? And I was like, well, no. And he goes, well, do you have anybody you could reach out to? I was like, yeah. He's like, make a list. So I made a list of 10 people. And I just DM'd them right there on the spot. By the time we were done, messaging the 10, one got back to me and said, hey, man, I'd love to. And I was like, oh, shit, I got a guy. Right. And now in 1 hour, like all these, I have a YouTube channel, I have a show, like, it's
now your belief system about
correct.
Who Omar is I'm a podcaster, basically. I got a YouTube channel. I have an
correct.
Inspiring person that already said yes. Correct. Most people,
identity
in my
shifting.
experience, would have sat there and made a plan.
Right.
And the plan would be elaborate and it would be 3 years out in the future and they'd get all these good ideas, and they probably are good ideas. Get all these good ideas. And then by the time we do anything, we're a month into this thing, and then you're like, yeah, I don't really want to do a YouTube channel.
Exactly.
But you're like committed, and now your paradigm of who you are is shifted to like, hey, dude, I'm a guy that has a YouTube channel, and I already have one podcast interview going today.
Exactly. And so that happens with that exercise. Then he tells me to write out a whole manifesto. I see myself. He goes, what do you want? And I wrote, I see myself making 100, YouTube videos with the most inspiring people in the world. I see myself and no connections, no clue, no money, no nothing. I still have the paper. I'll send you a photo of it.
Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wrote. I literally was crying when I wrote it. So there's like dry spots on it from like the water that dried on the page. It's actually kind of dramatic, but it's true.
No,
I still have it.
That almost makes me emotional because I used to do that with the back of my business cards. I didn't know it. I was like kind of, I don't know. I thought this was cool, so I whited out one side of my business card with freaking whiteout, and then I'd write my goals on there. And it's cool to see over the years how those change. So like. Yeah, I can totally see you sitting there like at the bottom going, gosh, crying, writing this out.
Yeah.
Is it super surreal, not to derail your story, but is it super surreal now that you've like interviewed all those people on that list?
I literally have the list and I have the names, and like, it's crazy. It's really like, it's weird. And I don't think it's like, yeah, it's crazy. And I heard this thing that Dave taught me too. He goes, think about this, the power of writing goals down, right? He goes, everybody disagrees on religion, right? Some people are Christian, some people are Jewish, some people are Muslim, Hindu, Buddha, you name it. Everyone, generally speaking, can have their disagreements on religion, but not one single person disagrees that whoever they believe their creator is wrote it down in doctrine. So if God himself had to write things down to come to pass, who are we to think we're going to manifest things without writing them down?
Yeah.
And once he told me that, it was like, oh my God, he's right. Like, we'll find out what faith is true, or we'll find out, all that. But there's no denying that every religion on earth has stuff written down by what they believe to be the word of God. And so
that's fascinating.
And so
on paper.
on paper, in black and white ink, clear cut, specific. So if God himself, to manifest that, had to write stuff down for us to follow and create and manifest, who are we to think that we're going to create without writing things down?
Oh my gosh, I love this. I just read this from Napoleon Hill the other day, Think and Grow Rich and all those things, like the OG of personal development.
Right.
And, he's talking about in his book, I think it's in Think and Grow Rich or maybe one of his other ones, but he says, look, I'm not here to argue what religion is correct, but same thing that you're saying, whether you're Christian or Muslim or Hindu or whatever religion, everybody agrees in the power of prayer.
Yes.
And he says, even if God doesn't exist, he's like, I'm not here to make that case in this paragraph of this book. Even if God didn't exist, as a human being, the most powerful force on the planet, hands down, is the power of prayer. The power of you believing that there's something higher than you that's going to control your life and do good things for you when you ask for it.
Yes.
And it's like a human quality. And then he's like, backs up with like, well, he's a Christian. So he's like, This is my point of view. I think it is God. But even if you don't agree with me, the framework of writing it down, like you say, or the framework of praying actually does help you as a human, regardless of your belief.
Amen. Amen. And at that time, it was, you have to understand, it's not like nowadays where podcasts and YouTube are like, it's like a thing and there's tutorials and it's very foreign. It's very new. Lots of limiting beliefs, no reference points. and yeah, so I get this first guy to agree to a video. We do like a test video. It wasn't even an interview. It was like a day in the life type thing. But now my belief was like, oh, snaps. Like, okay, something can work. And he goes, do you have a video guy? And I was like, oh, I don't think so. And he goes, do you have Facebook? I said, yeah. He goes, post on Facebook for a video guy. So I posted on Facebook, hey, I'm starting a YouTube channel. I'm looking for a video guy and editor. Boom. Within, 20 minutes, someone messages me, and it's one of my old friends that I forgot did video. Boom, I got a videographer and editor. Just like, so he taught me that everything is accessible if you just command your subconscious to ask the world for it. Like, Steve Jobs talks about if you poke life, something will pop out the other side, and most of us never poke. We just sit there and think and like, oh man, why is this happening?
We never take the first step. You're just doing these imperfect actions. It's
that's
a
right.
beautiful story about you have objections in your mind because you're in a low moment. And this guy, Dave, right? He's sitting there going, well, why don't you just do it? Why don't you just try with this thing? Why don't you just post and see what happens?
Yeah. And
good comes out of it.
And make use of what's in front of you. So often let me wait till I find a videographer. Well, let me think about who I want to interview. Well, let me start a YouTube channel when I know the name for it or when I have the logo for it. But within an hour, I got a videographer, I got an editor, I shot out 10 DMs, I have a YouTube channel. And he got me to see how you can take imperfect action. Remember the Jim Carrey story yesterday where I talked about thinking about him and being on the phone with his agent within like 3 minutes. Yeah. Right? Is like how quick you want something, pierce it out. If you get out of your own head and just like, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
One of my favorite quotes.
Yeah. And then the breakup was there. So then, in my mind and my heart, so I go, dang, you know what? My ex-girlfriend at the time, she's the one who introduced me to Grant Cardone. So she loved Grant Cardone. She had all these, Grant Cardone books, and she was in the health and fitness space. So she loved Quest bars, and her guilty pleasure was hot Cheetos. So you can see where this is going. You see where this is going
because I know the
story.
Yeah.
So my head at the time, I just thought to myself, I was like, well, you know what, Dave? This would be inspiring. And so I write down Grant Cardone, Tom Bilyeu, the $1 billion founder of Quest, and then
the protein bars
that she loves, yeah. And the creator of Hot Cheetos. Because I had heard in passing about his story online. It was a janitor of Frito-Lay who cold called the CEO of Frito-Lay and pitched the idea of Hot Cheetos. And the CEO was like, what the heck? Why is the janitor of Frito-Lay calling me to pitch me this idea for Hot Cheetos? But he took the meeting with him. Now, that meeting ended up turning into a multi-billion-dollar product. It's the number one selling Frito-Lay chip in North America. I mean, they do billions in revenue. And all because a janitor had the guts to cold call the CEO and believe in his dream, right? Imperfect action.
So these are your top 3 hit lists. Now you're like, these
Correct.
are guys that is it like kind of in a way to kind of get back at her?
100%. 100%. My motivation at the time when she broke up with me, my motivation in that time was, all right, like I didn't argue with her. I didn't fight with her. I was heartbroken, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. Nothing made sense. I couldn't go on dates with other girls. It was just her. I was so heartbroken. Like, I love her, but I don't understand her. Why would she do like all
so
these
much rejection because it's
rejection? And then in my life at the time, it was really, really, I went to a really dark place, and I just started channeling all that energy into the show. Anytime I missed her, boom, DM somebody for an interview. Anytime I thought about her, boom, let me find an editor. Anytime I channeled, all roads led back to like this. And
kind of like, I'm going to become somebody subconsciously. Like, I'm going to become somebody
you don't want
that she wishes she would be with.
Correct. My thought at that time was, when she broke up with me, my thought at that time was, okay, you don't want my time? Well, I'll show you who wants my time.
Yeah.
I will make sure you know my name, like it just and I didn't even want to have to say it. I just wanted to, I wanted her to she'd just be like, what? How did this guy broke up with? End up just killing it on these interviews. Like, how they just reinvented it. That thought was just so compelling to me.
Yeah. This is fascinating, by the way.
Yeah, which it's not healthy in retrospect.
No,
but man, for a young man with a chip on his shoulder, boy, does that give you drive? And
primitive, maybe, but effective, yes.
Well, absolutely, and it ended up leading to inspiring millions of people. I've shared the story here and there, and I'll tell you a fun fact about that is, Grant Cardone, Tom Billy, the $1 billion creator of Quest and creator of Hot Cheetos. So I was in LA. Cardone lives in Florida. I saw on his Instagram story that him and Elena Cardone were going to be in Beverly Hills, because Elena, on her Instagram story in the background in passing, said, hey babe, are we still going to, this dinner spot in Beverly Hills at 7? And he's like, yeah, babe, we'll be there 7:00. But then he's talking to his Instagram story. So it was like a subtle thing in passing that the average audience wasn't supposed to hear. She didn't know. He didn't even realize that happened. But I knew that restaurant. And the Instagram story just got posted, and it was like 3 or 4 p.m. I look at my time, and I'm like, I could probably make it there. So I drive 2.5, 3 hours to Beverly Hills to that restaurant at that time, in my Toyota Corolla. I remember that at the time. And I parked.
You're driving a Toyota Corolla in Beverly Hills.
I was driving a 2013 white Toyota Corolla
to go meet with the billionaire Grant Cardone.
Yeah, in Beverly Hills.
And at a restaurant that you weren't supposed to know they were even at.
That I can't even afford the gas to drive to.
So you said you park a few blocks away.
A few blocks away, and I get there, and I'm nervous out of my mind, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. What am I going to do? Just pitch him on being on the podcast? This is ridiculous. What am I doing? But again, all I could think about was the books on that girl's bookshelf. And what would happen if? What would happen if? It's crazy, probably won't work. What would happen if?
But what if it does?
Yeah, but what if it does? So I go to the restaurant, and I'm like, shit, what do I do now? Right? So I go in, and I tell the waitress, I said, hey, my party's coming shortly. Is it okay if I use the restroom? This is a really upscale place in Beverly Hills. She's like, yeah, sure. I go to the restroom. And I'm using my walk to the restroom to kind of like scope out the place to see if they did show up indeed.
No pressure. You're trying to not look weird, but you're also looking around the restaurant.
Exactly.
I can totally feel this.
And nervous out of my mind. And I go to the restroom, and then I come back, like I'm walking back. I didn't see them on the way there. On the way back, I see them in the corner. Grant's voice is very distinct. So I see Grant and Elena with some friends drinking wine. So I go, oh, perfect. They're drinking wine. Let me, let them take their time. Right, loosen them up, so to speak. So I didn't want to interrupt or anything, so I just went to go wait outside. My rationale was, let me wait till they come outside. Between, when they come out and when they get their car from the valet, there was like a SUV there and a driver. I could just tell it was his team, or I had a good feeling it was.
10X license plate gave it away, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was just like a big black SUV, and it was like a security guy. Like, I could just tell it was like the way Grant moves. And so I wait outside the restaurant for like hours, like maybe 2 hours or so. And every time the door opens, my heart's racing to go up and pitch them on being on the podcast. Not him. Door opens, my heart races. It's not him. And I'm just waiting like a block over just for them to come out. My plan to just, power walk between when they leave the restaurant and get to valet, which was like a not that, I have a 1 minute runway to do that.
Yeah. Very tight window.
Very tight window. And so finally they come out. I'm like, oh shit, this is my time. And I remember just going, just doing like a prayer to God, and I just, let's roll the dice. So I start walking, dude, and I was so nervous. I remember being so nervous.
Your legs are shaking, like
so nervous. I'm sweating. My hands are. And this is my head. This is stupid. What am I doing? No wonder the girl left me. Like, this is,
anyone that's about to do anything big can resonate with that.
Absolutely.
Like, that's like a thing, and it doesn't go away because you start doing bigger and bigger things. But anyway, continue.
Luckily, there's a book I read about that exact thing, Josh. It's probably one of my favorite books ever, by Dr. Susan Jeffers. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. It's this phenomenal book where Dr. Susan Jeffers takes all these anecdotes of stories of people who've done amazing things in business and life. And she interviewed them about the moments before big breakthroughs. And they all talk about the crippling anxiety, but then you walk through the fire. So thankfully I had read that book and it never left me. Feel the fear and do it anyways.
So you do it.
So I do it. Anytime I feel fear like that, I know that like the other side of it is rewarding. Even if it doesn't work out, the work works on you more than you work on it. Who you become as a person because you walk the fire is much greater than getting the thing or the deal or whatever it is. But I say it all confident now, but at the time I was shitting bricks.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Pardon my language, but yeah. So I go up to Grant and I'm like, hey, Mr. Cardone, big fan of what you've done with 10X. Sorry, don't mean to interrupt you, but I saw you were here and I just wanted to come shake your hand. And he goes, oh wow, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming out. So shook his hand and I go, yeah, man, I'm a big fan. I just came from working at Tesla and door-to-door sales, and I studied a lot of your sales training material, and thank you so much. And he was like, oh, very cool. What did you read? So it was very, very light conversation while you're waiting for the valet car. It's a quick 2-minute thing. And he's like, yeah, I was like, by the way, man, I know you're in town. I saw on your Instagram story, you said you're in town for a couple of weeks in LA. I know it sounds crazy. And because I studied sales training, I know all of his things about bringing up objections in advance.
Which is a hack. If you're going to go approach somebody, you might as well go do your research and speak the language that they speak.
Correct.
Because they obviously wrote it.
Correct.
They believe in that. And if they catch on to what you're doing, even better.
Yes.
Because they know that you're well-researched and they'll respect you for that.
That you care.
So you knew his sales tactics. And so you're like, obviously going to use those in pitching him.
So one of his things, that's exactly right. One of his things was bringing up objections in advance, right? So when I went up to him, I was talking to him, and then I took a photo with him, and then I said, by the way, I said, I know you would normally never do this. I know I have a small audience, and I know you're only in town for a little bit, but I have a crazy ask. I know you'll probably say no, but I would love the opportunity, if you're open, to potentially do a podcast with you, on your story while you're in town. And, we'd come to you 1 hour, be in and out, make it super easy for you. And I know I'm just starting. I have a show in post-production, but I would love to have you as part of the lineup. Right. So I basically gave full context, brought up all objections, and tried to be as nice a guy as I could. And I tried, people say the 10-second elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And I rehearsed it so many times in my mind. I probably butchered it out loud, but he just looks at me and he goes, son of a gun. He goes, you drove 3 hours just to ask me to be on your podcast, didn't you? And I said, kind of. He goes, I like that, man. He goes, you got balls. And I was like, yes, sir. Consider me the young man you once were with a dream. Consider me the young man you once were with a dream. That's right. I remember that distinctly.
I bet he respected that.
100%. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I like that, man. He goes, you got a card? And you know how people, I think we talked about this yesterday. You know how people, when they ask you if you have a card, how we all pretend, we go, oh yeah, let me actually see. Yeah. Oh, I just gave my last one. Yeah. So I did that right out of reaction. I was so nervous. This is my first time ever meeting Grant.
Yeah.
So most people are nervous to see him at an event. Imagine the first time you see him, you're pitching him to be on your show. It's very weird.
In your mind, you're still a nobody.
Totally.
I mean, like
totally.
You're manufacturing confidence before you have it, which is actually also a hack because, you're scared to death. And you said it earlier, I probably butchered it. So what? You probably did butcher it because I can feel the energy. Yeah. I've been in a very similar situation where I was presenting in front of a big corporation to do group health insurance, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm like, I can feel my voice is shaking. So I know that it wasn't a good performance, but it was a performance and it worked.
Correct. You rolled the dice. Yeah.
successful people respect that. They're like, dang, that guy has some chutzpah, like that. He
Yes.
had the guts to come up and say that.
Yeah, and they do it at every level, right? Even
Yeah.
guys who, I have clients now that, have multi-nine-figure companies that are nervous when they talk to the billion-dollar guys, and the billion-dollar guys are nervous with the deca-billion, So it never really ends. There's no black and white. It's just layers. But
I love that.
you only learn that when you're in it, And so yeah, so bottom line, I go, yes, sir, consider me the young man you once were with a dream. He goes, you have a card. And somehow, by the grace of God, I had one card. I don't know how. Maybe God put it in my pocket, but I hand him the card. And he goes, I like that, man. He goes, you're prepared. He goes, here, grab my assistant's number. And I got the number. And he goes, talk with her and we'll set it up while I'm in town. It's like, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I got the photo of them, and I'm walking back to my car, and I'm like, what? How did this happen? I'm like, he's
like, pinchers, like, is this real? Like,
dude, and I don't know who to tell. Nobody cares. My parents don't even know who Cardone. What? His name Can't Gardone. What's his name? They have no idea what. And I can't tell you. And I don't want to say anything, but I'm excited out of my mind. And this is this was at the perfect time of Cardone about to blow up and stuff. And so yeah. So I get the number, and then I message his assistant. She responds right away. We get to talking, and she goes, hey, are you free next Tuesday at 3:00? I remember going, yes, absolutely. Whatever time, I was like, yes, absolutely. 3:00 works wonderful.
Which you're really good at that. I mean, for anyone that, is listening to your story, that's a huge thing that I take out of it. I've got to talk to you a few times now. I've had the privilege, and I'm like, you just make it happen. Somebody wants to do an interview at 4 a.m, Omar's there.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to do it at 11 p.m, sure, no
Absolutely.
worries. I'll be there.
Yeah.
And I think if you're the guy or the gal that's lower status, let's just put it that way. Lower status, that's how the world works. It shouldn't, whatever. It does. It works that way. You should accommodate.
Yeah. No, totally.
They're doing you the favor. Figure it out, right? Clear the calendar. I don't care. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Absolutely. They're the A side. They're the A side. And even how we ended up getting a lot of the billionaire guests is we'd go to them.
Sure.
A lot of people, and transparently at the time I was totally broke. So I couldn't even afford a studio, right?
Right.
So I ended, resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. So what seemed like a handicap of why people would be like, well, I don't want to start my podcast till the studio's ready. I just had to get a videographer and a crew, a couple $100. We'll shoot wherever you want. We'll shoot on your boat, on your yacht, on your plane, at your mansion, at your office, whatever. Cool. Yes. So it was light. It was lean. At that time, actually, funny story. I never told anybody this. I was actually living at my parents' house when I did my first year doing the pod. I was literally, I'd go interview all these billionaires, and then come home and go to my room. You know what I mean? It was that bad at that time. And I remember actually borrowing gas money from this is a true story. I borrowed gas money to drive to Malibu to do that interview with Cardone. So if you watched my first interview with Cardone, I am totally broke. I borrowed my dad's pants and shoes at the time, so they would be nice dress. I mean, I wung the shit out of it.
Dude,
pardon my language.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the crazy part is that it was I got together a video crew. I remember they charged $550 to film and edit it. I didn't have the $550, so I asked if they could do a net 30 invoice, so I could have 30 days to pay it. I called a real estate office and asked if they would fund it at cost. I showed them the invoice, said, look, I'm not making any money on it. I just want someone to cover the production costs of it. It's only $550. You can pay the guy directly. Don't even pay me. Just pay. So I found a real estate office to pay it. And I don't know anything, but I was learning production. I was learning how to get sponsors. I was learning how to confirm an interview. I'm learning. I didn't know that I was learning, but I was just committed to the vision. We end up shooting the interview. And then during the interview, Grant, he's chilling, smoking a cigar with Elena. And during the interview, he's like, dude, you're one of the best interviews I've ever dealt with or talked to. And you have to understand, this is my first interview, almost ever.
Yeah. So
I don't even.
I've got a natural ability to do this.
I guess, yeah. I just, I'm so grateful because there's a total universe where A, he said no to the interview, or B, I did the interview and it sucks and none of my career ever happens.
Right.
Fortunately, option C happened and it opened the gateways, but we put that interview out, I remember, and then I went to Mexico on vacation with my family. And I remember just refreshing the page and it was 100 views, 200 views, 1,000 views, 10,000 views. 100,000 views, 200,000 views. I'm like, what the hell? Am I like a good podcaster and I didn't even know? Like imagine betting the house
Yeah.
and hitting, right? So, and then the girl saw it, right?
Oh, no way.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. I forgot about it in the midst of the excitement of all that. So then that happens, and then I'm introduced. Grant introduces me to Ed Milet. Boom, I do that. Ed says it's the best interview he's ever done. That gets like 500,000 views. All of a sudden, I'm making AdSense revenue. All of a sudden, sponsors start approaching us. And then one thing leads to another. All these doors start opening. And then I'm starting to learn production. And then people come to us. So then I'm like, oh, I guess we have a production company, right? And then stuff just kept coming and coming and coming. But yeah, that interview ended
Omar,
up being.
You just got lucky. Right? Like, I'm sure. Has anyone ever said that? Like, have you ever?
Sure.
Oh, you just got lucky. They don't know that you literally borrowed your dad's pants, borrowed gas money to get there, got a real estate company to cover the invoice for $550 to do the first interview.
That's
literally cold, basically ambushed the guy at a restaurant. Then people will say, you just got lucky because the first time you did, the first video went viral pretty much, and now you're who you are. It's all the things below the surface that nobody actually sees.
Yeah.
And that every single point along that journey, if you would have just woke up that day and said, man, I got this far, but I don't have the money to do the pay the invoice. So I guess I tried.
Right.
I tried.
Right.
And you pushed through all that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm taking from this is like the resourcefulness that you have in those moments.
Whatever it takes.
Look what it created now.
Yeah.
And then so much so that it got you out of a depression to where the original motivation, you said you kind of forgot about it, and then the girl sees it. What was her response?
So check this out. This is actually, this was the day that I got over it completely. So I end up doing the Cardone pod. I end up doing the Tom Bilyeu pod. I DM Tom Bilyeu a bunch of times. He doesn't respond. Finally, literally, it was weird. It's almost like, the 3 feet from gold you were talking about yesterday?
Yes.
I DM'd Tom Bilyeu maybe like 10 times to do a podcast. He never responded. And then literally the 11th time, out of nowhere, he goes, hey, bro, sorry, just saw your DMs. Yeah, sure, we can do a pod. Here's my guy. Here's my address. Can you do it at 4 a.m. on this day and this time? It was almost like he was just like, yes, gave me the keys.
It's like he was just sitting down one night and just happened to check his own social media.
Right.
And was like, oh, this guy, 10 times, I'll respond to it.
Literally the 11th time, imagine if I stopped the 6th time, 3 feet from gold, right?
Yeah.
It's like a lot of times volume is the missing ingredient. You're doing everything right. If you're men or women watching this, you're doing everything right. You just might be one hire, one person, or just 1 quarter, one more year of doing it away, but you never know unless you just, stick with it. And so that happens. And then the creator of Hot Cheetos, he was speaking at a few different churches. So I would go to the church, listen to the speech. And then when he got off stage, I introduced myself. I said, hey, great job, by the way. I have a podcast. I would love to interview you on the show to tell your story. He goes, I don't like media. I don't like press. I said, okay, no problem. Is it okay if I, check in a couple months or whatever? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. He went on a speaking tour at different churches in low-income areas to kind of share his message of, going from poverty to, the $1 billion hot Cheeto thing. So anything with flamin' hot was his. The flamin' hot.
Who doesn't like it? Like you get addicted to it. You eat one, I'm like, I don't really like that. And then you eat a whole bag because you're just addicted to the dang thing.
Yeah, and he negotiated one hell of a deal on all flamin' hot products. And and it's funny now because, I went to 3 or 4 different church visits, and somehow through the grapevine, this is the level of like committed I was, right? Like, I know it's insane now, but I knew a guy who knew his suit tailor. I drove to his suit tailor and said, hey, the next time he comes, I had a note with my phone number. I said, hey, I'm the young man who approached you at the church. I totally respect and understand if you don't want to do a podcast, but if you're ever open to reconsider, here's my information. Would genuinely love to have you on the show. Like, that's the level of insanity I went to.
But you're planting more. You planted a seed. Now you're watering it over and over.
Correct.
Different angles. I mean, that's super resourceful.
Yeah, I used to even do that with Tony Robbins, right? I used to. A lot of people don't know this, but his PR agency, I used to send them boxes of chocolates every Christmas. I never missed. Send them boxes of chocolates. I remember his lady goes, "Is this a bribe?" And I said, "Absolutely not," with a smiley face. So. Just whatever, because
absolutely, I would never bribe
you guys for Tony
Robbins on my podcast someday, and like I would never do that. Hope you enjoy the box.
I hope you enjoy the chocolates. And then I remember I found they started telling me what their husbands liked, and I would send like 2 pounds, but they loved it. But yeah, because then at least the gatekeeper, you essentially can warm up the world to your vision if you're willing to wait long enough versus just, hey, can I interview this person? Yes or no? Boom, move on. So I just took a long-term approach and just slow cook everything.
So let's talk about gatekeepers for a second, and just like you've had some incredible guests. I mean, we've mentioned some of them, and the list just goes on and on. Like literally, go check out the Passionate Few podcast and just thumb through all those thumbnails, watch a bunch of his videos. They're incredible.
Yeah.
With people that you have admittedly said, like, I had no business at my stature in life at the time, no business interviewing that guy or that gal, right? Yes. So you've interviewed all these people. Do you now have some kind of a formal outreach strategy, or is it all creative stuff like this? Or like, talk to me, I'm starting this podcast and we're a little ways in. Talk to me like about your best advice on how to get past gatekeepers, how you go about getting guests on the show. It's easier now for you because you have some momentum, but maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So early on, I did it very manual, right? Even with, like, to close the loop on the hot Cheetos thing, it took 3 or 4 church visits, his tailor. Then the 4th time I went to the church and he was speaking, I said, hey, I literally went up to him, and he I didn't even say anything actually that first time, or that 4th time. He saw me off stage, I remember he just went, son of a gun, something like, oh man, he goes, here you are again. He goes, all right, brother, I'll do your podcast, like he just like folded, right? And I remember me and him had a good laugh about it. He ends up doing the podcast, gets like 500,000 views, ends up leading to 20th Century Fox, and Disney and Hulu actually premiered it. Eva Longoria directed the film on his life story, but the podcast ended up getting such reach about it's the #1 podcast in the world on his story.
Wow.
And I guess through some sort of grapevine or whatever it is, a screenwriter had heard about the story, and they like watched the pod or whatever it was. It ended up leading to a series of events that was like a treatment for the actual film. They shopped it around, and it ended up getting produced into a film, feature film, a movie.
Oh my gosh.
My podcast clips were featured on like Good Morning America, ABC, all this stuff. In my head, I'm like, and I'm living in my parents' house, dude.
Yeah.
Just trying to get back at an ex-girlfriend who broke my heart. I'm like, what did this happen? I don't even know if I'm good at this shit. And so
the
all
world's
this stuff
telling you are.
Yeah, and dude, and now he's a good friend of mine. Now we're great friends. I've referred him a bunch of business. He's brought me business. He even invited me to the premiere of it to meet Eva Longoria. They actually premiered the film at the White House. I mean, it was insane stuff. And till this day, now we're actually great friends. And all this stuff happened. And here's the kicker, and I'll get into the outreach strategies. Is the moment for the ex-girlfriend that things changed. And I just want to share this with your audience, is our favorite movie to watch together was Jordan Belfort's The Wolf of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting interviewed by Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street, on his show. They invited me to be interviewed, so I was on the Wolf's Den. And I'm sitting with Jordan Belfort, which is a trip.
The guy the movie is based off of.
Correct.
You're sitting with the man himself.
And exactly. And me and her, that was the movie we watched together. That was like our, the movie me and her loved or whatever. And so now I've interviewed all the people that she liked that I wanted. And now I'm sitting with Jordan Belfort, who invited me on his show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling him, a similar anecdote of the story. And he looks at the camera and he says her name. And he goes, hey, how do you like him now? You effed up. He says it, not me. So in my masculine ego mind, I'm like, oh my God, did I actually manifest that like exactly how I want? Like, it's crazy. Almost to the point where like I felt bad. Like I'm like, oh, poor girl. Like I didn't even mean for it to get that crazy. But that's the degree it happened to. Now, I know I'm closing the loop on that story, but the outreach strategy initially was whatever it takes. That was literally the philosophy. Whatever it takes. DM, email, phone call, whatever it takes. Then I started teaching that to my team. But now at this level, I just find talented people from different organizations, right? We were talking off camera about videographers and editors from, different established channels. Large channels where they either used to work for the platform or they're freelancers that work for the platform, whatever it is. Like a lot of people have no idea how accessible a lot of these people are. if you like a podcast or you like a show or you like whatever, it won't take you more than 15, 20 minutes to find the guy or gal responsible behind the scenes. If you really put the effort in. And then I'll have them, right? So, for example, if I wanted to book people, I find out, well, hey, who's Joe Rogan's interview booker?
Yeah.
You can Google and find that name. Not hard to reach out to him. And
yeah, calling Joe Rogan is probably almost impossible at this point. Maybe.
Or you're not going to hire him away from him.
But you could find somebody that meets with Joe every day, that's accessible, and talk to that person.
Right. Yeah.
Or the person that talks to that person.
Yeah. Or find the interview booker and offer an hour of his time to pay for an hour of his time for consulting.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot more affordable than you imagine. Right.
Getting to super creative, it sounds like to me, like just think outside the box.
Whatever it takes.
If I had to, I like this framework.
Yeah.
If I had to, if it was life and death to get this person on my show, what would I do?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly it. But most people don't think like that, which is great for people like me and you.
Yeah.
Right. And like, even for example, I wanted to get Joe Rogan on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought. I'm like, what could I do? Like this, that. And I remember I literally Googled, check this out. This is a fun story. I actually Googled Joe Rogan shows because I'm like, oh, maybe, like, I don't know. Right. But like, let me just see if he's playing any shows. Right. I live in LA.
Like live performance?
Like a stand-up, right? Stand-up comedians are easily accessible. Like they'll hang out after the show. Like those are environments where it's kind of easy.
Yeah.
This is one of the crazy stories that ever happened to me. So one of my dream guests is Jerry Seinfeld. So God willing, that'll happen. But I go to the Comedy Store in LA. Oh no, it was the Comedy Store? I believe it was a Comedy Store. And I look online because I'm like, oh, I thought about getting Joe Rogan. I look and there's one more ticket left to the Joe Rogan show, and it was that night. I swear I had no connection or clue. And he didn't have any shows. Like he was traveling all over the country doing shows. Coincidentally, like something in the universe, like where I was like, I thought about Joe Rogan. I Googled it on my phone, and the show, it was like 5:00 when I Googled it. And the show was that night in LA at 9. And
there's one ticket.
There's one ticket. I went to buy two. I went to buy two. And it said, oh, you can't, there's not enough tickets in the cart. So I go, there's only one. So in my head, I was like, oh, this is God. This is God saying like, Omar, that's your ticket. One left. 100%. The thought came to me randomly. So I buy the ticket.
And in that moment, it's like a God thing.
Well, like at that stage, yes. At that stage, yes.
You have a good hunch. Like, that's pretty weird. Like, it's not like, oh, just one ticket. You're like, one ticket, same night. I've
been rewarded too many times in my life for taking weird chances like that, where it worked, to where now I believe now I'm willing to take the risk because it's paid off many times. So I'm like, screw it. Worst case, I have a great story. Best case, I get part of the show and I get him on the pod. And so I go. And as fate would have it, you don't always get what you want, but you always get what you need. So I go to the show. And Joe, and I'm kind of like, I try to not like sit in the show because my mission is clear. Talk to Joe Rogan, make a great impression, get an email, get a loose commitment for the possibility of a show, and get a photo with him. If I can just get that, I have enough to maybe move it to the next step, right? I'm never thinking about yes or no, just moving it to the next step because he's leveraged. The second you get Joe Rogan, you can interview everybody he's ever interviewed.
Right, because once your name is associated with Joe Rogan, exactly, then you can send that to somebody that's lesser than Joe Rogan, and they're all going to say yes.
Or that he's already interviewed.
Right.
Right? Which is thousands of people, of high-level people.
So you're there at the show.
I go to the show, and I'm like kind of scoping out the place. And he was the headliner, so there's a bunch of comedians before, so I know he must be hanging in the wings at the bar. So I'm kind of floating at the bar. I'm kind of just like trying to like do, just kind of, and nothing happens. And then boom, SUV pulls. It happens so fast. SUV pulls up. He actually had security and a bodyguard with him. I don't know if comedians could have bodyguards, but yeah. So he comes out with the bodyguard and he kind of goes in. Everyone's trying to like talk to him, whatever. And like security just keeps him out. He goes up and performs, gets off stage. And then the exact same thing happens. Security whisks him. It was like he was in, he did his set, he was off. And then they had another comedian after.
You're like,
yeah, it was just like, you got the show, no chance. Nobody got a photo. Nobody talked to him. So he goes, and there's one more comedian up. So I'm hanging out by the bar. I swear to God, this is a true story, man. I'm hanging out by the bar, and there's like a side entrance where the restroom is. And At the top of the show, they mentioned there's going to be a surprise guest coming tonight, separate from Joe Rogan. There's going to be a surprise guest dropping in at the end of an up and coming comedian. Right? They were joking around about this, of an up and coming comedian. So I'm sitting at the bar and I'm sitting there. I'm defeated. I'm pissed, and I was about to leave, but something in me just said, "Well, like stay, see who the comedian is, whatever." And so I kind of go to like a corner by the hallway where the restroom is. And lo and behold, it's just me in this hallway. Door opens up and it's Jerry Seinfeld.
No.
I swear to God. By himself, no security, no nothing. It's just me and Jerry Seinfeld. And I remember looking up like, what? Like, no way, dude. Like, I'm living in a video game right now. And so Jerry just walks in and I was just like, I was just like, I was like stunned like that, right? And he goes, "Yep, it's me." I swear.
So your face was just because your body language is just like in shock. Like,
I'm shocked. Like you're not how many times have all of us inadvertently watched Seinfeld, even if we don't like it or love it or whatever? Like
it's
we've all
iconic.
seen it. Yeah.
You can't not know.
And he's right there in front of me, like how me and you are sitting. He's just right there, walks in. He had a sports jacket and jeans and some Nike sneakers, hands in his pocket. And because he came in like discreetly because he was going to surprise drop in as the guest comedian at the end. I'm like, what are the odds? And because with Seinfeld, he doesn't announce that he's going. He just drops in. Because if they announce it, like crazy, like people go crazy for Seinfeld. So he just drops in and, he doesn't announce that he's going to be there unless he plays an arena or stadium or something. And so I'm hanging out with Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld. And we're just shooting the shit talking about dreams and goals. And he goes, yeah, like I never did any of it for money and I got all the money. He goes, I just did it for the laughs. I didn't, I did it because I love, and I'm sitting here getting
like 5-minute conversation.
This is maybe, like 5.
Yeah.
Like 5, but it felt like half an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one-on-one. There's no camera. There's no one even knew because it was like it's hard to explain, but it was like a little hallway on the side by the restrooms.
I've been to enough venues where I can feel it, like where it's like out of the way.
So there was like a bar and a main hall, and then you go into like the actual room. But there's like the side section where the restroom is, and then there was like a side door. But because he's Seinfeld, he didn't come in through the front; he came in through the side door. And I was hanging out because I had just gone out of the restroom and I was on my phone, like just trying to kill time or whatever. And then so we get to talk, and I'm talking to Jerry Seinfeld for like 5 minutes, and in my head I'm like, oh, ask him to be on the pod. Everything in me is like, ask him to be on the pod, ask him to be on the pod, ask him to be on the pod, ask for an email, But I'm like, oh, but be respectful. But then my brain's like, you're never going to see him again ever in life if you don't take the chance now, Omar. Like I'm having this wrestle in my mind, but I was tuned for Joe Rogan, but like maybe God brought me for something bigger. And this is all while Jerry Seinfeld is talking to me and I'm nervous out of my mind having a drink. Like talk about a combustion. And you have to understand, it's like maybe 10 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, I had no plan to even be here. Like I was with family. Like I just wung. Putting myself in the situation.
You're just there, and now Seinfeld's there, and now you're having this conversation. You want to be respectful, but you also know that boldness is rewarded.
Right.
If I'm not bold and ask, I'll never know.
Right. But I'm also trying to make small talk to build rapport because everyone in the world asks Seinfeld for a photo with this or that.
Smart. Yeah.
So I'm trying to build rapport, but I also know he's about to go up. And I'm juggling all this stuff, and I'm a little tipsy, to be honest with you. So I'm like trying to process this whole thing. And then so I I ask him some life advice. He gave me some phenomenal life and business advice. And I go, Jerry, would it be possible to take a quick photo with you? And he goes, nah, I'm good. But nice to meet you though.
Oh.
Yeah. And he shakes my hand. And I was so stunned by that. I was like, okay, nice to meet you. And then he walks right by me.
Oh,
and I never asked him. I was like, shit, and then I learned later, I started doing research and I realized he hates photos and when people ask him for stuff.
Which is also, you had no way to know that because you didn't know you were going to meet him. But I didn't know that. Also a hack. If you did, like you knew Joe Rogan stuff. If Joe Rogan would have, you knew that, oh, he loves videos or he doesn't, or he likes pictures, he doesn't,
That's right.
But with Seinfeld, okay, so you didn't, so he's now on the list. Yes. Dream list.
Yeah, I have a crazy story about a second attempt to get Seinfeld that didn't prove successful, but I might get in trouble. I never shared it, but actually snuck into the lot. There was a nonprofit charity event. I hope I don't get in trouble. Maybe we edit this out, maybe not. But that was the first time. So it killed me that I didn't. I'm a weirdo. For weeks, it killed me that I didn't ask Seinfeld.
You're like, I should have shot the shot.
And yeah, I played the conversation so many times. I should have done this. Next time I'm in this situation, I'm going to handle it like this. But I didn't know that and then I found out later online that he hates taking photos unless you make him laugh. That's his unwritten rule. So, for example, I saw an interview where someone asked him, like, Jerry, I know you hate taking photos with people. When's the last time someone made you laugh and you gave him a photo? He goes, one time I was in Central Park in New York, and I saw a guy, he recognized me, and the guy went, look, I know you hate everybody, but is it possible we could take a photo? And then he laughed at that, So he's like, his whole thing is if you make him laugh, he'll give you a photo.
It's like it's his currency. He already said it. Like, I don't really care about the money. I just care about the laughs.
Correct.
That's interesting.
He's had the number one show on television for 30 years. Can you imagine how many times he's been asked to take a photo every day of his life? Thousands of times.
Yeah.
So I totally understand and respect it.
So you went for attempt 2.
So I went for attempt 2. I found out that there was, maybe I shouldn't share, but whatever. I found out that there was a charity event at one of the studios, and that him and his wife were hosting, and it was an annual one. And so I found like a flyer for one of the studios it was at. And dude, I don't know how, I had guts at that time. Like now I probably wouldn't do that, but I had guts at that time. I drove to the studio, no clue what I'm going to do. Zero clue how I'm going to get in. I don't have any credentials in my Toyota Corolla, the whole thing. So I drive to the studios, I get to the gate, and the guy at the front gate, maybe we should bleep out what studio it was, but sure, I get to the gate, and the guy goes, oh, what are you here for? So I tell him, oh, I'm here for the charity event. He goes, okay, do you have your credentials? I said, I don't have it on me right now, but my wife who's going to be here shortly has the, I don't even know what I'm saying, right?
You're just like
something, I don't know. I don't even remember what I said. And he goes, all right, well, you're going to need your credentials to get in, whatever. And I go, okay, cool. She should be here shortly. But there was a line of cars behind me. So I said, is it okay if I just pull up right here on the side until she comes? He's like, yeah, that's fine. So I kind of just like went in and just kind of kept going. and I don't know how or whatever it is. So I got to the parking lot, like parked the car, and I was like, now I'm in the friggin' studio. Like,
so now your adrenaline's going probably. You're like,
dude, adrenaline through the roof. Now I'm like, where's maybe we should delete this. But I'm like, all right. So I like parked the car, and I'm walking around one of the studios, and I don't know where it is. I'm like, we're just walking around the whole studio, and then I find this big thing, and I find it, and in my head I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. I run into Simon Maniscalco. Is that his name, the comedian?
I'm not sure. I'm not good with comedians.
Yeah, he's a comedian. His name's Maniscalco. So I run into him, and I start seeing like big name Hollywood actors and actresses and stuff, like big names. I won't say who, but like colossal names are like walking from the parking lot with me towards the thing. And in my head, I'm like, what am I doing? How am I? And I'm dressed in a sports jacket. Like I'm dressed for the occasion. That's the funny part. And I'm walking in. And so I go in, and now I'm like at this like charity event with all these people and all this stuff, and I'm just looking for Jerry and his wife, and I end up seeing his wife, and I end up kind of like mingling and getting to know some of the people there. I'm like hanging out at the table, like I'm part of the charity. At a certain point,
you're like, who cares about Seinfeld for a minute? Like this guy, A-list actor would do like.
Yeah, when in Rome, right? So I'm in there. I'm nervous out of my mind. I'm hoping security doesn't spot me. Like I'm dealing with all this stuff. I'm also trying to, and so I find out actually that Jerry had just left. Like Jerry, he popped in for like a little bit, and he had just left. But his wife was there, and she was talking to people, and it was kind of, I could just tell that if I asked her something, it'd be like, well, who are you? How did you get in? So I ended up not doing anything. Like I got that close, and then Jerry had just left.
Yeah.
So I missed the opportunity on that. And then I ended up going back to the car. I ended up getting photos with all these A-list actors. I got Simon Maniscalco's like contact or whatever. I even got a video with him, shot it to my dad. My dad's a big fan of his comedy. I got in my car and I left through the other exit, and I never got the interview. But like those are some of the lengths I've gone to like attempt. right? Like a lot of people hear the cool stories. I have a lot of stories like that where I tried things that didn't pan out, but I rolled the dice, you know?
But most people won't even send an email,
Yeah, I know.
right? Like you're sitting here going, dude, I've done some questionable things, for being honest.
Yeah,
like, that's pretty questionable. And most people won't send an email or a
Right.
text message or a DM.
Right.
You'll send 11 DMs.
Yeah.
You'll send whatever. And your approach, though, if I'm understanding it, is always respectful, because that's your
Always.
best chance. Like How to Win Friends and Influence People 101. I'm guessing you're a fan of the book.
Respectfully persistent. It was the first book I ever got from my Uncle David for my 15th birthday. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I took the learnings of that book quite literally.
I hand that out like candy. It's my favorite book.
It was my first personal development book ever. He gave it to me for my birthday. And I remember being, when I was 15 in 2007, when he gave it to me, I was kind of pissed because everyone had given me like money or things. My Uncle David, who I loved, my Uncle David was like my personal development buddy. He was like my best buddy. He the type of guy he was, I mean, probably unethical, but screw it. He would come to my, like, this is how I learned how to drive, right? This is the type of guy he would come to my soccer games. He'd have, a couple drinks with him. I'll let you imagine what kind of drinks.
Sure.
And he would just like be on the sideline supporting me, all this stuff. And I remember I was like 14, 15, and he had quite a bit to drink. So he after my soccer practice, he throws me the keys and he goes, "Hey, you're driving home." And I was like, "Oh, Uncle David, I don't have my license or my permit," like all nerdy. And he goes, "That's okay." He goes, "It's not that hard." So he came, and I was like, I don't know. And he had this before he had like a Rolls Royce, Cadillac. He was always like a personal development, higher level guy. He was the uncle that was like unorthodox. He'd pick me up and take me to seminars, Think and Grow Rich, masterminds. He taught me about affirmations. But the whole family thought he was like nuts.
He's like pretty out there.
He's just about money, and like he thinks of positive thinking, and he goes to get rich seminars, and like that was the family's attitude towards him. But
sure,
I clung to that because I wanted more for my life, and I didn't have that in my immediate environment. I often joke that the odds of me interviewing Tony Robbins are higher than the odds of my mom or dad like listening to a 5-minute video of Tony Robbins. But yeah, that's context on the environment.
It's a half joke. It's funny, but it's also not funny.
It's actually literal.
Yeah.
It's actually literal. Yeah. Great. I love my parents, great parents, but like they were never into that type of world of stuff. And I get it. It's a different generation.
Sure.
But Uncle Dave was like the bridge to me in that personal development world. So he throws me the keys. I'm sitting in his Cadillac, and he pops open the cooler, has a couple more drinks, offers me one. I don't take it.
You don't even know how to drive, but I
don't even know how to drive. I might get a DUI on my first attempt.
Yeah.
This is a true story, They're like, just cool guy. Like, he's just funny like that. And he had a cooler in the car in the passenger seat. And he's like, "Oh, make a left," I'm like 15 with cleats on trying to drive. But yeah, that's how I learned how to drive. Like I would just drive him places. I didn't even have a license at the time or anything like that. And he would just like, "Yeah, you shift like this, put your foot on the clutch," or, he taught me how to like parallel park and like that, just learn in the action of doing. So a lot of lessons I learned were in the midst of chaos. They weren't through formal, step-by-step, rational thinking.
It's kind of like jump and then build a parachute on the way down.
Correct.
Because you have to.
Correct.
I think that story reminds me of the first time I ever drove like a nice car. Like I drove farm equipment from the time I was, way too little. Shout out to my dad and my brother. My brother's wedding, I was like a 7th grader. Like between my 7th and 8th grade. It was a summer between my 7th and 8th grade year. So I don't know what age that is, but definitely didn't have my license.
Yes.
And one of his buddies had this V8 Mustang, like a newer one. And it was like, the tires were jello on the pavement, And so we were going from a church to the venue afterwards for the party. And it's like a 15, 20-minute drive kind of on a back road. And I was in the wedding. His buddy that had the Mustang was in the wedding. And he's like, "Hey, Josh, why don't you drive?" I'm sure it was looking back, it's probably the same scenario. Right. I didn't know that it was probably a drinking thing. But so I get in there and we're going pretty slow. And then he's like, "All right, just hammer down." And we're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're just roasting the tires. So I'm sure you're sitting there like learning for the first time. But you're also like, "Dude, like, look at me. Like, I'm driving."
Yeah. I remember, he always, even like, I remember he took me to the bar and he would be like, "Hey, those girls are cute. Do you like them?" I'd be like, "Dave, please don't embarrass me. Please don't." And he go, "Hey, ladies," he goes, "How old are you guys?" And then whatever they say, 21 or 22. He goes, my nephew's 16 here, but he's a stud. And he'll like introduce, like he would just put me on the spot, man. He was like that.
That's so good for you, though.
Oh, totally. Or like we'd go to seminars. He'd encourage me to sit on the front row.
Mm-hmm.
If the seminar asked a question for volunteer, he'd like raise his hand and point to me. Like he would just always put me on the spot,
Well, boldness, one of my mentors, I paid him a lot of money, $50,000 to go to his house for 2 days.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the money to do it. Like I borrowed against my next paycheck.
Yeah.
I was making good money, but I didn't have that much cash just sitting there. 50 grand's a lot, paid in full. I didn't know payment plans. I didn't even ask. I was like, I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I go to the place, and the number one thing that I've learned from that guy is the sentence, boldness is rewarded.
Yes.
Almost always your boldness is rewarded, even if it doesn't work out. So you go and you raise your hand, you ask the questions. What's the worst case scenario? You look like a fool in front of a bunch of people you don't even know. That's not that bad. Best case scenario is that the seminar teacher, this guy that you're sitting front row, loves you because you're some ambitious young guy that's raised his hand asking questions and like takes you under his wing and gives you connections and opportunities. And it's just amazing how the world works.
Yeah. And for me, the boldness was really rooted in, it's going to sound kind of morose. I don't mean to, but we're all going to die. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like when you realize we're all going to die. And I got this because my Uncle David, who passed away, rest in peace, he got diagnosed, he had cancer. And he got diagnosed with 18 months to live.
Dang.
Now, the irony of that is that he actually outlived it for 18 years. So he outlived his diagnosis, but they gave him the 18 months to live.
And then he lived 18
years.
Whoa.
And that 18 years was the years that we bonded. And so every moment with him was borrowed time. And he was aware of it. And he subcommunicated that urgency to me very young. Mm-hmm. That like in one moment, it could all, there is no later.
Like stop
even later.
So serious.
Yeah. I remember he told me even later is just now, a now. It's a now later. Mm. There is no later. There's only now, but like a future now.
Like tomorrow never comes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Your entire life is like 10,000 nows.
Yeah, just the present moment. That's all we've got.
Correct.
So and quit worrying about the past. Quit focusing so much on the future and like, what can I do in the? Is that kind of what? His philosophy was like? Do it right now.
It's not easier later, so you might as well do it now.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. That was the kind of attitude he had. So like, if there was, if he was interested in real estate, we're gonna go look at it right now. If someone brings up a real estate idea, like here we're talking about boys, like I want to go look at real estate now. Yeah. Not like, oh yeah, maybe like next year, and it's like the urgency part of it, right? So I got that from him, and I remember he was in my Uncle David. Like I said, he was diagnosed with 18 months to live. He had cancer. He outlived it for 18 years. I was actually with him days before he passed away. My intuition told me to go visit him. It was crazy. I had a full day of plans, and it was the weirdest sensation ever. But something came over me that told me to go visit him. He was in the hospital, and it was like the weirdest. Like it was so like strong. It told me go visit your uncle.
Like there wasn't a question. Like you just
it wasn't a question.
That's what I had to do.
I went, and he loved this smoothie, and I drove like an hour to go get this smoothie for him. And when I went to go get it, I took it to him, and he loved it. And we hung out the whole time for a couple hours, and he passed away a couple days later. It was the craziest, profound moment. But I remember like that last talk was about mortality. That last talk was about how fragile life is and how limited it is. And I'm so grateful that I got to experience it with him. But he told me that when he got diagnosed with 18 months to live, and he lived the 18 years, that they taught him three things. Is that what helped him survive was something to do that you enjoy, someone to love that loves you back, and something to look forward to. And he said that what helped him do that is he learned that at a seminar, and they taught it at the hospital, I believe it was City of Hope, that all cancer patients that are diagnosed with terminal illness, that they teach them those three things. And so that was always his North Star. Something to do today that you enjoy, someone that you love that loves you back, and something to look forward to. As long as you have those three things, a human being can be fulfilled. Interesting. And it gives you a reason for something to look forward to. So he always had a seminar to go to. We always were going to play a round of golf holes. He was going to come watch my soccer game.
Something always to look forward to.
Correct. There was always a concert. And so when I was younger, I was always wondering, I'm like, this guy's so old and he's so active. And he was married and had kids and everything.
Yeah.
But me and him had a special bond. And it never made sense to me why he always, like, most adults, you do something with them once every couple months. Uncle David, almost every other weekend, would invite me to like a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, or like the Beach Boys, or like there was always hey, want to go to Hawaii with me here? Or want to go golfing here? He enjoyed every day to the fullest. No matter what happened. He got in a car accident, he'd joke about it. Because he was so aware of the mortality of it. Like I wasn't even supposed to, I outlived it by 10 years. I'm already in grace land,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think you have to hit rock bottom in order to appreciate, like even your story. Like you
Sure.
hit rock bottom
Yes.
in order to appreciate like the simple things in life. Like, oh my gosh. Like now it's not quite as big a deal if you get a Grant Cardone on your show. But like when you're at rock bottom and it changes your entire paradigm of your entire life, sometimes I think you have to hit that. He's like, I'm diagnosed with cancer. I'm sure he had a great perspective on life before that, but it like amplified it. I'm sure it was like, hey, this is borrowed time anyway. So
Right.
let's just go after it. What keeps you at this point, Omar?
Yeah.
Like, what keeps you, like, what are you driving for? Like,
Yeah.
Like you're only like 30 something years old, 33 was it?
32, my 33rd birthday's tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So you're 32 years old. What keeps you, like, you have all the success. What drives you?
To be honest, initially it was like I mentioned, I wanted to make millions of dollars, inspire millions of people, and meet some of the most incredible people in the world. I've been fortunate enough to build a multi-million-dollar business. I've been fortunate enough to reach a lot of people online, and we want to continue to grow the show. There's still a long way to go and things we'd love to do. But honestly, for me, the things I'm most excited about are, we do cool projects like building homes in Mexico, and we do all sorts of cool give back projects. We're working now. My team is trying to put together raising funds from different partners on helping cure blindness. It's actually like paying for surgeries for blindness in third world countries is not as expensive as most people would imagine. So right now, I'm trying to find a way to integrate a way where I know we talked about it, like where a portion of the proceeds, like if there's some sort of way where the business is the business and then the show funds 100% the nonprofit efforts and just keep building that, that would be cool. So that it's a literal translation of like my dream allows others to empower their dreams in their life, right? Like I'll never forget it. The first time I built homes in Mexico for people, we raised money from the show and we donated a bunch of proceeds, and we built homes for these families that literally have no home, zero home. And we built concrete homes for them. And we take care of everything, funded the kids' education, backpacks, hygiene kits, haircuts, the whole thing. And I remember handing the keys to the family and just seeing the gratitude and tears in their eyes, and to think, holy shit, I was once in my car, freaking, depressed out of my mind, heartbroken, and somehow I've now met all my heroes, the Tony Robbins, the Patrick Bet-David, right? I've met all these amazing legends. I've done amazing business. I've flown all over the country, all over the world. And because of the show and what I do and turning this pain into power, I now have given families homes for the rest of their life. Not to toot my own horn or any of that, but I can zoom out of it and humbly be grateful that, like, holy shit, like that all started from a breakup.
Yeah. And like this is stuff that really matters.
Right.
The look on that person's face when they walk into a home for their first time in a long time.
Unbelievable to me. So unbelievable. And I'm in the home, and the kid, I'll never forget it. The daughter was like playing around. She was so excited. She had her own room and she had her own bed, and she, and so, and we take a whole team of volunteers and clients. If you've ever like to come, or your teams would like to come.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And we go on a weekend, and in 2-3 days build an entire home for them, a bed, and some of the conditions that a lot of these people live in is unbelievable.
Right.
Unbelievable. Like we think we have problems because we didn't close the next, big deal or whatever. Like imagine their water, like some of them have big jugs of water with flies and bugs and all sorts of stuff. That's what they shower, brush their teeth in, share for a family of 4. And they don't even notice to them that's not even a handicap. To them, They're grateful they have that.
Right.
More grateful than us who are like, the water's cold today.
Yeah.
Or the shower head, I want to get the other shower head. This one, the pressure's too intense. Right. And so
these problems that we complain about
First world.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah,
You know, like-
first world issues, 100%, you know? And so for me, my vision is to just keep growing the show
Mhm.
and keep connecting it to bigger parts of it. And then also, like in a crazy way, do some cool collaborations, right? Like one of the things I'm interested in is getting people together, right? We flew to Romania to interview Andrew Tate. I'm like, what if I even messaged Andy Frisella because we're having him on the pod.
Congrats.
We're doing another one with him in May. And
He's the one that like created 75 Hard. And
75 Hard, First Form. They just partnered with Anheuser-Busch to do an energy drink product. But I thought about like roundtables, right?
Yeah.
Where like, because interviews are awesome. I'll probably do them forever just because I love to do it. My joke was like, if I wouldn't do it for free, I wouldn't do it for a fee, right?
Mm.
And so one of the cool things would be like, what if we did things where, for example, we had like Tate, Frisella, and like if life was perfect, Tony Robbins, right? Or like combinations of high level guys in a room where you hear perspectives in real time. Well, I think this. Well, I think that. Versus
but like really credible opinions, different perspectives. Though.
Correct. All in a room.
Dude,
Right?
That's a great idea.
Right. So stuff like that, and then to take it a step further, what if we donated all the proceeds for that to nonprofits? And what if we, so I have all sorts of creative ideas like that that are really compelling and interesting to me. But at the end of the day, Dave Meltzer says it best. I want to help a lot of people, make a lot of money, and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty fulfilling life. Well, anything that you do on that, if there's any way me and my team can be of help on either of those projects. But
absolutely.
Like, I think you're onto something that I would love to watch.
On the jet.
That.
What if we did it on the jet?
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that. Part of the jet, and I never thought about those big of names, but I was thinking getting some of these younger guys that have and women that have like these massive followings, but maybe not as much, business and wealth as they want, getting them on the jet and doing collaborations that way. Like, hey, we'll go pick you up and we'll all, there's 4 or 5 of us or 6 of us on the jet. And we'll have a conversation going somewhere to film something.
Oh, that'd be epic.
Go to Aspen. Go some cool location to make it worth everyone's time.
Yeah.
But then everyone can use the jet for content. And, it's who said it? I think it was Dan Martell. Dan Martell said, it really shouldn't be this way in the world where, I show up in a McLaren to speak to a bunch of kids, 18-year-old, 17-year-old kids at my Kingdom Builders. What's that? Not King's Club.
Right.
So he has all these young people. He's like, it shouldn't work this way where I walk in and I don't need any credibility because I pulled up in a McLaren and now my message is just understood. And everyone just assumes the credibility. But he said, it is that way.
Yes.
Like, people like that. And I think because people give a bad reputation to like all the cars and the jets and the luxury yachts. But I think all it is just like a physical sign that is like proof. Because you don't just go own a yacht if you didn't go do something.
Yeah, it's a physical representation of materialized effort.
Exactly. Kind of like you can just see it. One of my goals, I have a fitness goal. And we were talking off camera about that a little bit. Like there's a fitness goal that I have.
While we were eating donuts.
I didn't eat one.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I did.
For once, you didn't see it, but I ate one before you got here.
I'm the guilty one. Yeah, I ate like 1.5. Yeah.
Yeah, guilty as charged. I ate too much last night. But it's like that. Somebody said that. There's like that's a physical representation of like how much you care like for yourself, like the amount of like you're being in shape. And I go, that is true. I just never saw it that way.
Do you find, for example, for the success you had? I know you're interviewing me, but I'm curious. Do you find that there are parts of you that like almost can't believe the situation you're in, or certainly initially more so? In terms of, having success with, taking chips off the table with the exit, is there parts of you that almost feel like, holy shit, how did that happen to me? Or do you feel, not that you deserve it, but you get what I mean? Like, is there a sense of like, I have more than I feel like I deserve initially?
Yeah.
Or do you feel like, no, I did the work and like, it makes sense? Does that make sense?
No,
like,
I'm very. It's a great question, and I shouldn't let you ask it since I'm interviewing you. But
sorry,
I'll answer it.
Yes.
I'm very humbled by the fact. Like even yesterday, I was just in the kitchen at our house, and I'm so used to it, but it's a pretty nice place. It's on 10 acres, and we have on accident 3 houses right now. We got to sell one just because the timing
Whoops.
of how quick we just like go
On
quick.
accident, yeah.
Well, it's because you mentioned earlier, like we just decided to move and there's like no time to sell anything. And it was just like, buy this and do this. And
Sure.
so it's like, we have a lot going on that most from the outside, you'd be like, you should be super proud of all that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, deep down, I'm like, yeah, that is really cool. But I think more often than not, I'm surprised that I don't feel like on paper, someone's like, oh, you did all these things and like, it's such a big deal. I don't feel that much different. Like, I just kind of feel like Josh, the farm kid that's like, I learned some really cool lessons and like, I can't believe they work. Like, I just did what the books say and I just do what the mentors say and I just go out and I take imperfect action like you're talking. And all of a sudden it's kind of surreal that like, I feel spoiled that I'm in this beautiful house. And I'm just kind of like taking it for granted because like material things just don't really do it for me. Like I guess maybe some. I'm just sitting there like, this is crazy. Yeah. Like I guess technically this is weird that I'm looking at the spreadsheet and I'm feeling nervous and there's that much cushion.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't feel nervous, you know?
Yeah.
It's just kind of a weird, very humbling, at the same time, very like shocking. But that's why I have this attitude that like kind of similar to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to die and be like, oh, the only thing I did was, by the time I was 28, I exited, put the money in the stock market. And then by the time I'm 85 and I die or whatever, it's like, oh, you pass all this generational wealth. My current attitude is screw generational wealth. Right. We don't need to pass on hundreds of millions of dollars to kids. Why don't we go do our best to grow it for sure? But like, go make an impact, like you're speaking my language about this stuff in Mexico. Like I want to get involved with you guys on that.
Yeah.
How can we spread the message faster, more people, inspire more individuals?
That's awesome.
That's what gets me out of bed.
No, that's awesome, man. And you do a great job with the show and I appreciate all the questions. That's good stuff. Sorry to ask you the one question, but my habits, is what I do.
I'm giving you a hard time. I learned so much from you even just talking to you. One question I do have for you.
Absolutely.
What does your prep look like for like podcasts? You've done hundreds of episodes at this point.
Yeah.
What you're going in to meet a billionaire like John Paul DeJoria. What is your prep leading up to that? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To be honest with you, it's funny. It's actually counter to what most people think. Most people imagine that I prep for hours. To be honest with you, the SOP with my team is that I'll have somebody on my team will prep like basically like a 2-3 page PDF. It's in the SOP. So they'll just get the whole background on the story, the whole backdrop of everything they can find. How old they are, where they grew up, their background story, the size of the business, the scope, any kind of books they have, event. Like my team will do a whole like deep dive. They'll send me that PDF. I'll review it pretty thoroughly. And then naturally, to be honest with you, if we're interviewing someone, I have some sort of awareness of the guest.
Sure.
So I actually try to intentionally do not watch any interviews that other people do with those people.
Oh, interesting. I would have thought the opposite. So you don't watch any interview because curiosity, you want to keep.
It will the curiosity, but most importantly, it skews I've done it a few times, and it skews my interviews, and I start trying to lean into what I know, the safety, what I know they said with the last guy. And so then I'm like trying to, it's subconsciously, I'm trying to chase that and make it better. And I start playing this game in my head of like, okay, how do I make it better than PBDs with him? Or how do I make it better with the...
You can like accidentally recreate the same episode almost as they've already done.
To be honest with you, it takes away a little bit of the fun for me. So one thing I do is I like to say, like, for example, if you told me, hey, President Trump is ready to interview right here in 10 minutes. Can you do it? I'd say, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Because I very much identify with the audience. And I know probably as much as them, maybe a little bit more if I'm prepped and briefed. But I don't want to know too much more because I'd like to learn with them. You see what I'm saying? So for example, with Tom or whoever, right? The janitor created Hot Cheetos, right? One of my first questions was like, so tell me, you go from being a janitor to that, like, how does that happen? Did you literally just cold call the CEO and like, did you like look him up in the phone book if I watched other interviews, I would have known that answer. So I probably wouldn't have asked it.
Yeah, but the audience is watching it
Has
for the
no
first
clue.
time. So
Correct.
you're starting to make assumptions and be like,
Correct.
you tell the story and then ask a pointed question, and everyone else is like, wait, I don't have no idea what he's talking about.
I like to take the frame of reference of, hey, everyone, epic person is here. You guys know what they've done at the top, but you have no clue what they've done from zero to get there. Let's learn together. Hey, so where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? See, if I know all those answers in advance, I might not ask it.
Right.
And then in my head, I'm trying to avoid, I don't want to ask that or hype too much because he talked about it a lot with PBD, or like, oh, he talked with Tony about that. I start getting in my head. But if I don't have that and I just have my natural curiosity, I can be free. So where'd you grow up? Okay, and then what happened next? Oh, and then when you say that, did you mean this? And
So
then I don't get tangled up.
So you're like part of the audience, almost like you're
Correct.
almost like you're at the networking event, and you just happen to be able to sit down with a drink for an hour with the guy and just
Correct.
be like, what did you do? Like, how did you get where you're at?
Correct. Because you have to understand, remember, when I started the show, most podcasts are one rich guy talking to another rich guy. I'm oversimplifying.
Yeah.
But I always, for me personally, nothing wrong with that, but I always personally hated, maybe that's an aggressive word, but I really strongly disliked when they would just start from a place of like, hey man, yeah, last time I saw you, we were in Italy. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we were skiing in the Alps. Oh yeah, that was cool. And yeah, you had just sold the company, and the audience can't relate to that.
How's that hedge fund going that we will not name? Yeah,
exactly.
I get what you're saying.
So,
it's unrelatable.
But when you go like, hey, you sold your company for $1 zillion, but take me back. And you're like, well, I grew up on a farm. Now the audience goes, oh, okay. Like, I get it. I grew up in a small town too. Or, oh, I grew up on a farm too. And I learned this actually from Tony Robbins. He said audiences, when they're consuming content, he's one of the best storytellers, if not the best in the world, in my opinion. And he said audiences, when they consume content or hear a message or a story, are thinking one of two things. So what? Or me too. So what? Or me too.
Or me too.
And so when you can, from the very beginning, that's why most of our interviews, if not all of them, start with, where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? So that the audience gets a sense of like, hey, Josh also didn't know what he wanted to do. He also played basketball like me. He also, got into his dad's line of work, and he was trying to figure out what to do. He also went to, got pushback for trying to innovate the company, because these things are the things that make it sticky, and they go, oh, wow, me too. And that's what really helps people. The reason I called it The Passionate Few was that I wanted to humanize greatness one story at a time. It was by the passionate few, for the passionate few. My goal was to help people who are watching, whether they're in Cambodia or Kansas or Zimbabwe, man, woman, whatever it is, to watch the story and go, wow, this person could end up with whatever the thing is, achieve this, have this, a jet, a home, success in business, impact people on nonprofit, whatever the aspiration is. What was step one? What was step two? What was step three? That's why for me, I like that sort of thing because I needed it, right? We talked about it yesterday. The best teacher is the student that needs it the most. When I started these podcasts, I had no money. In fact, some of the wardrobes and interviews, I've never told this before, but I literally used to go to Nordstrom and I would get like suits. Like if you see some of my early interviews, I would get suits and I would wear them in the interview and I would go return them. I swear to God, that's literally how broke I was.
Tuck the tag in.
That's how broke I was. It's like, I literally used to do that. Because I wanted the presentation to be great. Not because I'm cheap or anything like that. I actually hated doing that. But at the time, I financially couldn't. I was doing the best I could with what I had.
You just did what you needed to do to get it done.
Correct. Resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. I mean, even down to like when I started and I didn't have money for production stuff. Remember, I got the sponsor. In the beginning, I found a video guy and I said, hey, look, dude, I'm not making any money. It's going to be hard to keep raising sponsors. Like I can't financially do that until I get the business and the production stuff off the ground. I said, would you be willing to 50-50 AdSense revenue? And he went and looked. And so I worked out a deal where my video guy and editor would 50-50 AdSense with me. And very quickly we started doing, it was a couple $100 and then a couple thousand, and then it just kept growing. And then it ended up getting to like 8,000 a month. So we were splitting that, 4,000 a pop, which would have been his salary anyways at that time initially. But that was after the compounded effect of us doing stuff. So now I had access to big names.
Yeah.
I had no capital, but but I had a partner who was down to 50-50 when money came in. So I had the perfect machine. And then also I didn't have a studio. So if Ed Milet said he was down, you know, his name was Luis. Shout out Luis, still one of my best friends ever. I said, you know, I'd be like, hey, Luis, Ed Milet said his house in Laguna Beach tomorrow at 12. He's like, done. I'll be there at 11:30. Boom. You know, so I had a well-oiled machine that was lean, that was getting big views, and that was operating, you know, and high octane. But all that happened, resourcefulness was the ultimate resource. I had no money. Yet I'm sitting down with all these billionaires, asking them questions, telling me I'm like one of the best podcasters they've had. And I got this, and I'm winging it by a string, dude, early on, right? But it was, like you said, resourcefulness was the ultimate resource. My cousin, he actually worked in, he's a Marine. He actually was presidential security for Trump. And he taught me something they taught him in the Marines, which I'll never forget. He said that in the Marines, they bred this concept that you have to believe that there is always a path to the outcome you want, always. And most people don't believe there's a path, so they don't try. You said something earlier that I think is brilliant, is like, it's called gun to your head thinking, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you had a gun to your head and you had to make it happen, you had to, what would you do?
Yeah. Life and death go.
Right. And most people never do that. Like, it sounds crazy, but if I told you, you know, whatever it is, you had to interview President Trump in 30 days, otherwise major consequence.
Like one of your kids is gone off the, you know,
right,
yeah.
Exactly. And you have to do it. Go. Would you go like, that's a little unrealistic. That's an unrealistic threat, right?
No.
Your brain would start getting radically creative. What about this guy? What about this guy? And you in high school who's connected to this? Well, what about that? What if I call the White House? Well, let me try to send an email. It's okay if they don't respond to the email. Let's at least try it because it'll take 2 weeks for them to get back to us. Let's call here. You'll just start moving in that.
What resources do I have that I can deploy that way, this way?
Correct.
You know, creative angles, people that know people. Correct.
Even for example, I was putting together an interview, you know, with President Trump, and we're working on a way to do it, and you know, it was going to be pretty substantial, and it had to be done quick. So in my head, I go, well, let me call sponsors. I'm sure there's a lot of companies that, you know, would be willing to. And it wasn't hard to get a yes. I mean, for Trump, like, people that love him, so they're happy to do whatever we got
for the sponsors to help pay money towards whatever.
Correct. Exactly.
And transpire.
Correct. Exactly. But see, most people would never. I have no business interviewing the president. Why would I do that?
Yeah. How do you overcome that? Like the imposter syndrome of it all. You know,
someone asked me that yesterday. Yeah, I was speaking at an event yesterday. Someone asked me that. You're gonna die. Like,
so like going into like a big billionaire like John Paul DeJoria, or going in meeting with, like, let's say you landed the Trump thing.
Sure. I will, God willing, but yeah.
Yeah, you will. I know you will.
God willing. Yes.
So like when you go sit down in a scenario like that, what are you feeling? How do you combat do any negative emotions come up, or are you just like so seasoned at this point it doesn't matter?
No, emotions come up for sure. But I learned this, again, Tony Robbins. I learned about this concept in Kirlian photography. Kirlian photography is basically like, you know, on a map or like an X-ray when you can see someone's insides. So you can actually see when people light up with nerves or anxiety. Kirlian photography, like heat of the body, right? So when people have anxiety or their whole body goes crazy or their mind on, you know, alcohol or drugs, or just they're excited or nervous, in Kirlian photography, you can see the way the body lights up. And they did this study where they actually found, they measured, they compared measurements between, you know, for example, when someone has an anxiety attack, what that looks like on a Kirlian photography visually, and what it looks like when the Rolling Stones, for example, or rock stars go out on stage to perform in front of thousands of people. And wouldn't you know that in Kirlian photography, it looks exactly the same. What one person calls an anxiety attack, another one calls excitement for the performance.
Really?
And so
somebody labels this feeling anxiety. Another person, seasoned pro, is excited to do it.
And it's on a cellular level the same thing, but it's the individual's habitual label on the thing that becomes their interpretation of it. Put in layman's terms, the label you give the experience becomes the experience more than the actual experience itself. And so for me, when I learned that about Kirlian photography, now I just think about that. But I get nervous out of my mind, for sure, like out of my mind, but I don't call it that.
Call it, I'm so
excitement.
Pumped for this.
Exactly.
I'm sitting down with a billionaire.
Right.
Can't wait to have
I'm excited for this. And also the anxiety gives me like a presence, similar to, you played sports in high school?
Yeah, basketball.
Exactly. So, you know, for example, on championship games, the second the whistle blows on an important game, you're on, you're like, your spider senses are on. Like every point matters, every touch matters, every versus a regular season game where you're a little bit lax about it or
Right.
chill. So for me, I use that as focus.
I love that. And it's funny you mentioned that because I use that story all the time. Like if you've ever played sports, it's obviously universal. That's why you brought it up.
Right.
But if you played sports, like the big basketball game, there's nerves, whatever you can call it, excitement
Right.
leading up. And then the second the tip off happens and it's like somebody touches the ball, you have to go into it's game time, baby.
Yes.
And it's just time to act.
Yes.
Like action cures fear.
Yes.
That's what I figured out. And somebody smart said that, and I just like grabbed on it. I'm like, hey, anytime I feel fearful, just like take action, and it goes away. Because now you're just like in the dang thing. Do you feel that the way like with interviews? Like once you're kind of into it, there's a flow, and it's like, hey, I don't.
The second it starts, I'm free.
Yeah.
I'm nervous out of my mind the night before. The drive there, my heart's pumping out of my chest. The small talk. I'm at First Form with Andy Frisella. He's giving me a tour of 1 million square feet of office space. I'm like, why does he like me? Why am I here? Who am I? There's people with much bigger chance. Like all sorts of that pops up. But I don't know.
But the fact is, you are there.
Correct. And again, for me, people asked me this all yesterday. I was speaking at an event. There's like a lot of people in person, and then a bunch virtually as well. And someone wrote in and asked the exact same question about imposter syndrome. They're like, you're so poised with all these big level people. How do you do it? Again, man, my only thing is like, we're gonna die, and I know that's not motivating or inspiring, but like, I don't know. My Uncle David I did an exercise with him one time where, we were talking about like death, and we basically the premise of it was like, imagine you lived your whole life and you effed it up.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't go for what you wanted. You didn't ask for what you wanted. You didn't do the thing. And then you said, God, please give me a second chance. Please. You're 80 years old. You effed up your first life. And then you're like, man, God, please give me a second chance. Please give me a second chance. And then God goes, all right, fine. And you go, oh, shoot, that was my second chance. Like, oh, cool. Like, let's not be nervous this time around. Let's not, And so I've just always tried to do that.
Kind of like this
live it like it's your
Christmas
second
story,
chance.
like the story of Scrooge.
Yes.
If you're familiar, my kids, it's not even Christmas time, but my kids love that story.
Yes.
So we read it almost every day. I don't know how we got on that track. They're like, oh, I want to do the one with Marley the ghost. And it gets me every day.
Yeah.
Same concept. He's like living this bad life, and then, he's doing all these things, and he's just greedy, crotchety old guy.
Yeah.
And then he's visited by the ghost and sees that what the real important things in life are. And then all of a sudden he thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
And then comes back to life and is like, I'm just going to decide I'm a new person as of right now. And I'm like, why can't I just do that any day that I want?
Correct.
You can't, right?
Correct. No, totally. It's funny. I joke with my friends, like, it's like, they're like, oh, how did you know you wanted to do this? And literally it was just like, after that coaching session with Dave that one day, I literally just woke up the next day and acted like it was my job. And the universe went, okay, fine. Here you go. Like, you have a podcast, you have a production company, you have a show, you have a nonprofit helping people. Like, I just woke up one day and just decided that's what I want to do. And one step in front of the other, no matter the rejection. And over a year, 2, 3, it worked. Like, things happen.
Act as if. I mean, yesterday you said something to me that I went home and I'm learning a lot from you. I learned something from everybody. And yesterday you were saying, just act as if.
Right.
Like in your life when you had not that many views. Now you get hundreds of thousands of followers. You have millions and millions and millions of views on all your, on a lot of your stuff. And it's like, okay, when you were first starting, I guess you didn't really care about the views so much because you were doing it for different. So you just like acted as if a million people were going to watch this thing eventually. So I'm just going to do my best. Yeah.
Yeah. Even now, I mean, we have some videos that have gotten millions of views and the audio is even bigger, millions of downloads. And then, sometimes videos will get, 10,000 views or 20,000 or whatever. And so, right. So I never, first of all, that's still a lot of people, but I never.
Yeah. That fill up a 10,000 person stadium.
Yeah.
And tell me that's not a lot.
But if you compare every video against the, the 100,000 or million thing metric,
sure.
you can start playing games with your mind. But no, to me, man, I always did it, kind of like I told you yesterday, is like I always did it from the perspective of like the joy is in doing it. The icing on the cake is the audience, right? Even we're talking about, Patrick Bet David off camera is like, the way he's built his show, like he went from interviewing entrepreneurs to mafia bosses.
Yeah.
You can tell he loves to do the thing,
Right.
like sure, views are great and they compound, but how long was he doing stuff for a decade before it really caught wind? It's hard to last if you're not enjoying it. And I find that if you enjoy it, what's created from the heart is felt in the heart.
What's created from the heart
is felt in the heart. So anything you create from the heart, the audience will feel in the heart. You cannot communicate that which you're not experiencing. And so it's more about scaling that experience for people, but not losing it yourself. I know a lot of content creators, who have millions of subscribers, but hate what they're talking about or hate the types of videos, but now they're pigeonholed to just make those types of videos because that's what the audience likes.
Yeah.
So,
and that's not that's just like, now you're on the hamster wheel and you just can't get off.
Yeah.
Like this conversation for me, I'll speak on my side of it.
Right.
This is so fun. I don't care if there's cameras or not.
Right.
Like that's the perspective. It's like if it gets one view and it's me, cool.
Yeah.
If it gets a million views, even better because it spreads it to other people. But like that's a cool perspective. I'm learning from you because I'm new in this journey. Yeah.
And that's the attitude that grows it. Of course, you still want to optimize and get better at growing and stuff like that. But that should always come, right? Syntax, right? That should always come after you actually enjoying the thing. Because the second it becomes the other way around, well, now it defeats the whole purpose. Now you just have, a highly paid job or a highly stressful show, right? It's like, and I have a lot of friends like that, golden handcuffs. There's a great expression, God, I forgot it, but it was in the same line, it was in the same vein of what's created in the heart is felt in the heart.
Like what you're projecting, like what happens inside. I mean, this is more of like personal development, so I don't want to go there, but what happens inside is just going to be projected out to the world. So if you're really enjoying something, the audience will feel that. Kind of like sales, if you're certain about it, they'll feel certain about it. If you're all insecure, they're going to feel insecure.
And in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter because to the viewer, they experience it the same. I'll give you an example. And this is for the viewers as well. Think about an interview you watched or a video you watched that profoundly impacted you or inspired you. Did the level that it impacted you internally vary whether it got 7 views or 70,000 views?
No.
The experience for you was exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, is to give people that experience. If you do that over a compounded period of time, that's the right metric to follow, especially as the creator. Now, if you have a team around you, they can focus on scaling that. But as the creator, the second you get too much into doing this to get views, even though you don't like it, it'll work for a video or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, but you'll find yourself 3 months down the road thinking, what the heck are we even doing?
Yeah, we wouldn't be sitting here when we're both 70 years old and still want to do this.
Correct.
Eventually on that path, you're like, screw it. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Right. And even for example, like one person I look at is like Tony Robbins. Like look at his channel. Sometimes as he's the king of the personal development world.
Yeah.
He's 100% inspired about all of his videos on YouTube. Some of his videos don't even get a few thousand views, which is still great. But if you're Tony Robbins, it's easy for him to be like, no, I need to get 1 million views every video. But it's focused on the mission.
Yeah.
And so then you make the debate, hey, would I rather be like, whatever, Mr. Beast or whatever the YouTuber is who's getting 1 million views every video, but, might not necessarily be aligned? Or do you want to do something that's part of a mission and in the grander scheme of things, you're growing? Now, of course, I'm not saying don't focus on the metrics.
Sure.
But don't focus so much on the external metrics that you lose sight of the internal metrics.
That's huge. So you've asked all these people all these different questions. I'm sure some great stories came up. We're talking about like emotions that you felt.
Yeah.
Like what's a time that, like one of the best stories that you heard and you're sitting there, you're talking to a big, entrepreneur or, they're an expert in some field.
Yeah.
What are some stories that maybe like have really stood out to you that other people have told and kind of like got you in the feels or made you feel emotional in some way?
John Paul DeJoria, 45th wealthiest man in America, from Patron Tequila, and Paul Mitchell, shampoo and conditioner. I asked him, I was in his office, we're setting up. He had a flip phone. He didn't even have an iPhone. He had a flip phone. His team handles his email.
Smart man.
Yeah, high leverage, right?
Yeah.
And there was a couple things I learned from him, right? One of the most profound things was about time horizons. I would say there's 3 things I learned from him. One of them was about time horizons. And he talked about this concept that, for example, if you think about the wealthiest people in the world, they actually, they take on the biggest risk. I think Jeff Bezos was like $20 billion in debt before he had a $20 billion net worth. So the pendulum of risk versus reward swings evenly both ways.
Yeah, they're not really necessarily the smartest or have the most connections, although those things do help.
Yeah.
They're the people that take the most amount of
We're
risk.
all made of the same skin, flesh, blood, and bones.
Yeah.
How we use it is what differs. Everything else, all factors considered, we're more or less the same. We all bleed the same color, right? And I think, like your father said, we all put on our pant legs one leg at a time.
Yeah.
And yeah, but he taught me about this concept that time is magic, right? So when a billionaire taught me this concept, it stuck with me. John Paul DeJoria said, billionaires think in terms of decades, right? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Multimillionaires think in terms of, maybe a decade-ish, decade plus, maybe 10, 15, 20 years. Millionaires think in terms of a couple years, right? 2 to 3 to 5 years. People who make $1 million focus on making it a year, right? Or 6 figures focus on making it a year. Or people who make 10 grand a month, they focus on making 10 grand a month. Minimum wage focuses on the hour. You see how the time horizon with which you evaluate wanting to get paid for effort scales. So he taught me that basically the wealthiest people in the world think in longer time horizons, and the people who make the least think in terms of the hourly minimum wage.
Yeah, I need to make that hourly.
Right.
I learned this when we bought a restaurant. So this is bringing up something for me is like I was shocked that people were upset that I wanted to go from a daily paying tips out to just like to make the books easier. Obviously, I'm not from the restaurant industry.
Right.
To make the books easier, like we'll just do like a weekly, add it to the weekly payroll.
Right.
I thought weekly payroll, that is a lot of freaking effort for
Right.
administrative work. Who needs paid more than a week? Because I'm just used to getting paid like you said, annually. You're thinking a little bit bigger.
Right.
And it's like, no, they were so upset. Everyone said, we'll quit if you do it that way. And it's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But that's just a different mindset.
It's a different mindset. It's a different time horizon with which they want to get paid for that effort. And that's the marketplace speaking,
Yeah.
And he goes, because if you think about it, like Bezos, I think, even Uber, like a lot of these companies, these billion-dollar companies aren't profitable for a long time, but the Uber driver wants to get paid today. See what I'm saying? So it's right after this ride, I want my $16, right? And so time horizons matter. And then the parallel to that was like, okay, that shows up in the work. For example, you're building out your media enterprise with what you're doing. Are you focused on ROIing from this interview day one? Right? Or the compounded effect year one or year two or, whatever it is, right? So that was the first thing. The second thing I learned from him was the power of delegation in teams. It was unbelievable. In 20 minutes of being in his office, his high-rise office in LA, I think it was Beverly Hills, he probably had 6 or 7 people come to him with like an issue, and he made a decision on the spot. It was unbelievable. Someone would show him an ad. He was playful and joking with me. He's like, hey, what do you think? Let Omar pick, right? So
on like an ad or something?
An ad
like,
for shampoo and conditioner, Paul Mitchell. Yeah. I actually saw the ad later, which is funny.
How surreal is that? You're
Crazy.
sitting there and you're like, hey,
Crazy.
Omar, you choose.
That was the most surreal one. That was, of all the experiences I had, that was the most like felt lofty. Like, oh shit, like I really am not supposed to be here. Like I really did pierce this part of the universe. Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street, that was pretty surreal too.
Because you've seen his movies so many times. Yeah.
For many reasons, and the fact that he invited me on his show, like that was surreal. But no, John Paul, he basically, like, probably 6 or 7 people came in and had a question, and they'd be like, hey, for the new ad, should we do this? Hey, for distribution in Mexico, we had a question about this. And he would diagnose it with people. He'd be like someone would bring him an issue, and he'd be like, tell Mario to make a decision by noon. He doesn't have to double check with me. I trust his judgment. Someone comes in with another thing, have Maria sign it. If they won't do it for 10% less, tell them no deal. We'll have to revisit it next month. Someone else came with something, and he's just handling these nuanced things, like firmness and a point person to make the decision, and it's all happening like so fast in between us talking while the cameras are being set up in the room. And he's not even fazed by it. It's not even taking up any real estate in his mind. Whereas someone else might look at the ad, have a meeting with the marketing team, discuss it back and forth, the font and what we should do. And so that got me to see in real time with my own eyeballs what high leverage decision making looks like. Because literally like 6 or 7 people came into his office with a question, an issue, a thing, and every one of them was diagnosed with a rule and a person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like,
here are the parameters.
Correct. Parameters
like,
and a person.
Hey, if it's less than 10%, instead of saying, hey, on this contract, tell them this and then let me know what they say.
Yeah.
He goes, you own this.
Correct.
As long as it's within these parameters, get it done.
Correct. Yeah.
If it's outside of those parameters, bring it back to me.
Correct. Exactly. So he would give autonomy and he would just have these rules of thumb. He was the master of his own universe. But the major thing in that was 8 players, right? Because you can't do that without 8 players. So that's one of the hugest things. Of all the successful people I met, the number one common denominator, a lot of them have great stuff. A lot of them have things they're working on. But across the board, not a single one of them can last a decade or more without a great 8+ team.
Yeah.
Like that is, and all of them have phenomenal assistants. Like I have seen that at the highest levels. Their right hand is like a soldier, not an employee, in terms of their attitude. It's not like it's like, oh, well, it's 5:01 p.m. It's whatever. And I think PBD talks about this off camera, like when they're hiring people, like, hey, are you going to be willing to, at 8:30 p.m. on a Friday when you're out at dinner with a girlfriend, take a call if I have a quick note about something I need Saturday morning? Or are you going to, gaslight me and say, hey, can we revisit this Monday? So I don't want that. I want someone who gets it,
Yeah, we're here for the mission and we're going fast. The quick decision thing is successful people are the ones that make the quickest decisions and just, again, take a path and just go. And then we can correct later.
Yeah, that's the third thing I learned from him that I was going to bring up was, I mentioned earlier that Paul Mitchell, when they started, the Paul Mitchell shampoos and conditioners, they're like white bottles with a black sticker.
Yeah.
He told me that early on they bootstrapped it and had no money. So when they went to the manufacturers to try to make the shampoos and stuff, they just were like, what's the cheapest? And it was white bottles. And instead of printing on the label, it was the stickers. Today, they still use the same bottles and stickers for Paul Mitchell shampoo and conditioner.
And it's a luxury brand.
Yeah.
Resourcefulness
is the ultimate resource. But yeah.
So I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing that you heard? Like somebody talking about, or the craziest experience? I mean, you've literally interviewed Andrew Tate. You've been in Romania.
That was probably crazy.
Was that like because you spent like 24 hours with the guy? Like, what's that experience like?
Yeah, I flew there. I was in Romania for about a week. I spent 5 hours with Andrew Tate in Romania, and it was awesome. To be honest with you, a lot of people disagree on his opinions, but off camera, super nice guy, super well spoken, super sharp. They asked for I think it was 5 or 6 black coffees. So we got a bunch of black coffees. We didn't ask questions. And the dude drank a ton of black coffee, just black coffee and fruit. And then he eats once in the evening. He's super disciplined with his diet, but he's just black coffee and fruit. So we got a bunch of coffee. I remember we ordered 7 black coffees and a big bowl of fruit. And throughout the interview, he smoked 2 cigars, had all the coffees and ate a bunch of fruit. But when he walked in, it was straight out of a movie. He walked in, he came in an armored car. He had bodyguards. There was 3-4 bodyguards. And they came in first. They scoped out the place. Bodyguards came in. They met us. They patted us down to check us out, whatever, talked to them in his right hand. This was in Romania.
Wow.
And
makes sense with all the stuff going on, I guess, right?
Dude, it was wild. I'm telling you, it was unbelievable interviewing Andrew Tate in Romania. It was 5 hours. He comes in, asks for 7 black coffees. When he comes in, he has these bodyguards come scope out the place to evaluate it. Mm-hmm. Then he has a right hand next to him, armed, right? He's got his whole security team. And then, because in Romania, especially at that time, he was public enemy number 1.
Right.
And so we end up, and then everybody in the hotel is dude, it was like a movie. Jesus walked in, right? Everyone's whoa, that's there's an aura for sure. Even the staff was are you going to interview Tate? It was so crazy. And he walks in, shake his hand. We end up chatting, whatever. And then, we walked to the room. I was like, dude, thanks so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate you doing it. And then we're walking up the stairs. I remember we rented out this beautiful, it was the most expensive. I literally was I want the best of the best of the best. We ran out the most expensive, high-end, luxury presidential suite that in the entire country, in the entire area of Romania, Bucharest. And it ended up coincidentally being the same room that Piers Morgan interviewed him in, the exact same room.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so the team had set it up. It was this whole massive, epic setup. And there was an armed guard for the entire 5 hours at the door.
Wow.
1 inside, 1 outside, armed. just stood at the door. Like, imagine we're doing this thing here. Imagine an armed guy, like just standing there for 5 hours, never went to the restroom, never drank water, just stoically ready.
Didn't even blink.
Yeah, just ready for war. Nice guy, but like the second something, he's ready to go. So that was crazy. Talk about
just
like
in that environment.
that environment. And then we're smoking cigars. You're not supposed to smoke cigars. There's like a $1,500 fine. Tate's like, don't worry, I'll pay for it. Didn't care. We open the windows, we smoke cigars, and we're just talking. We're having at it. And a lot of people, that ended up getting millions of views and downloads. But a lot of people said they really enjoyed that podcast because my goal of it was to humanize Tate. A lot of people take certain things, in whatever context they want, and is polarizing. And yeah, I know he's polarizing. But, I asked him about his early jobs. I asked him about, the first girl that broke up with him, and he shared that story. I asked him about, he used to, a lot of people don't know, he used to collect fish. He worked on a boat collecting fish. He worked in IT. Like, can you imagine Andrew Tate being a tech in IT?
Yeah. Doesn't really seem like it's a good personality fit. But there
Right.
it was.
Yeah, exactly. And so, getting to humanize a little bit of the story was awesome. And it was like 5 hours. So that was pretty surreal. And then at the end of it, he's kind enough to, we were like talking, whatever. And, out of the kindness of his own thing, he ended up sending us a bunch of generous gift in crypto, just out of the kindness of his heart, and was like, hey, I really appreciate your guys' time. I know you guys do good work in the world. And I guess he had heard of some of the nonprofit work we do. And so he just, he like sent us a fat wire, and his like team got it. And I was like, no need to, like, don't even worry about that at all. Like, we're just grateful that your time. And he was like, no, I insist. And he was like, and he insisted, and even texted and followed up the next day to insist.
Wow.
Yeah. And they wired a thing over. So very, very like generous, very like, yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I have a show, so he was extra nice to me, right? I don't know. People might listen to that and have a different opinion on it. But
you met him, and you liked the guy on a personal level.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Because I disagree with some of what he says, but I mean, a lot of what he says, to be honest, probably the majority of it I'm aligned with. And I even told him, I said, I even told him in the interview, I said, what do you say to people who agree with a lot of you say, but there are issues with your delivery?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times the medium is the message. If you say, men need to be better leaders to take care of their women, it's very different than if you go, don't make your bitch work.
Right.
It's the same. He's intending to say the same message, but by wording it that way, you're now triggering a whole bunch of people. But he knows that.
He knows that.
He knows that
on purpose, I'm sure.
He knows that. Well, because it polarizes, it gets views, and he can drive traffic, monetize that, and it gets people talking. I mean, look, we're talking about him here, right?
Sure.
So he's aware of what it does, and he's willing to make that trade. Most people are not, understandably so. But for him, he's willing to make the trade.
Do you find that you like most of the people that you've interviewed, or
Yes.
sometimes do you have like, whoa, didn't realize like they're not the same on camera versus off? Obviously, I'm not.
I have had that happen. Most of them, yes, but I have had some of the biggest names in the space, and that everybody knows, where I've seen stuff and I've gone, whoa, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff behind the scenes where I'm like, oh, all that glitters is not gold, and then that's kind of what it goes back to. Kind of I was telling you earlier about, when the metrics become about the views, and then it blinds you from some of the character elements of it. And but yeah, I've seen stuff behind the scenes where I'm like, not a fan.
They're just an actor on set, and behind the scenes, they're not as.
It's hard to say without saying, but
sure, yeah, I don't want to.
That I would say that I have seen people who act unethically outside of the family. Let me leave it at that. That on camera preach family values that behind the scenes aren't in exact alignment with that, and I've seen that fit like.
Yeah,
proof, not hypothetical.
Which I'm sure we've talked about.
Yeah,
our values, and I think we share a lot. I've got very little tolerance for that.
Yeah,
because there's certain things that's like, if you're willing to do that to the people you love the most,
right?
Then you're going to be loyal to nobody.
Right. Well,
You,
yeah. And then you're just loyal to more views.
right.
Right. And then kind of like what I said earlier is like the external metrics become more important than the internal metrics to measure. But
We're
yeah,
coming
for
up
sure
on
that's
time, but
happened. Yeah,
like it all comes back to who do you want to be at the end of the day?
that's right.
And is the success going to fuel the right way, or is it going to diminish it? Like money is just a tool.
Right.
And if you use it for good, like these projects you're doing, if you use it for good and you stay on the rails, it'll just amplify the good.
Right.
But if you have some pretty big character flaws or holes in there on the integrity side,
Yeah.
more money just means more problems.
Yeah. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Mm.
Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And one of the things I've learned too, and I've actually shared this with a lot of my clients. I take on one-on-one consulting clients, and one of the things like I've seen a lot with even successful people is like everyone focuses on scale or like growing things, but you can scale chaos even if it's successful, right? And so you want to ideally scale peace of mind more so than chaos, because it's possible to have a very successful business, a very successful show, a very successful whatever, and you just grow and grow and grow it. But because of the way it's structured, it's chaos. And so you're just growing the chaos, and sooner or later, the house of cards will fall.
Yeah.
And so one of the most challenging things is kind of like when building, right? If you rush a project, like say you're building a physical building, you can have all the manpower, all the money, throw stuff at it. But if you're in a rush to build it, one little thing you miss, whole thing come crumbling down.
Yeah, the foundation, the concrete work is bad and everything
Correct.
crumbles down.
Correct. And in the military, they have a concept called slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so, that's one thing too, is like, I tell a lot of my clients is like, you want to do things like right as fast as you can, but you also want to make sure that you're not doing it so fast that you're just building chaos. You're just scaling chaos. You want to scale something that you can sustain. You want to scale sustainably.
We had a client, reminds me of a story. We had a client that was a consulting client. We're helping them grow their insurance agency. And they had a compensation structure with their internal agents that didn't make any sense. They were paying 70% to their internal employees, which way out of whack. So they're paying the marketing, they're paying the cost of the building, they're paying all the payroll, they're paying all the expense as the house. And those expenses exceeded their 30% take.
Right.
So every new client that their team was bringing on, they were actually losing money.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that. They didn't see it that way because they had a personal book of business built up enough that like there was enough profitability that it's like we're growing because they're measuring the metric of how many new clients are we bringing in, not the metric of what's the bottom line look like today versus 3 months ago.
Oh, that's right.
And he's like, I want to scale. And I looked at the books and I go, you don't want to scale this.
Right.
To your
chaos,
point.
Yeah.
We're scaling chaos. You're going to go broke. If you scale this, if you 10x your growth pattern, you'll be literally bankrupt within the year. So that's kind of how I developed the concept, like prepare to scale first. Right. We did this whole training, for all of our clients on prepare to scale, have the foundation built, and then let's build from there. I think some really wise person actually coined that, like build your house on rock, not sand.
Ooh, I love that.
Build
your house on rock, not sand. Yeah.
Yeah, build your house on rock. I can't claim credit to that one. That one's straight out of the Bible. But it's like that concept makes sense. When the winds come, when the waves come, you don't want it to crash your house down. But it's built on solid foundation.
Yeah.
And
doesn't matter if it's a mansion, even on sand, it'll be nothing. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate that perspective. It's interesting when you sit with real world people like you have and you actually see it.
Right.
To be like, okay, some people are at the top, very humble, awesome people. Some people at the top just look like they're that.
Yeah.
And they have a lot going on behind the scenes that maybe you don't want to adopt those traits.
Yeah, and it humanizes it. On the one hand, I was like shocked beyond belief. But on the other hand, in a crazy way, I understand. I get it. And it showed me that nobody's immune to human vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
As long as you police them. But it did tell me that, millions of dollars and millions of views does not mean anything on the inside. It does not somehow cure your internal stuff, or in some ways it can actually test it more. More money, more problems, right? Yeah. But yeah, no, that was probably one of the most fascinating things I realized. And then also your ability to withstand pressure. Like, one of the most fascinating things that I've heard I forget if I shared it with you, but I haven't. One of my dream guests is Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase.
I had that question anyway, so thank you for asking. So Jamie Dimon.
Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase. So I saw this thing where he was talking about how, a lot of people, with big CEOs like that have a hard time. The public at large has a hard time with how's that CEO, like, yeah, his salary is $1 million, but how's his bonus, 150 million for the year, right? Like,
Sure.
It's not fair. And you take him. He goes, but people don't understand. He goes, I get the sentiment publicly. And he goes, but imagine you're me, right? And this is a true story. Jamie Dimon at one point had 72 hours to put together a $32 billion deal. They had to do a merger and acquisition situation where one of their sister banks or companies basically was about to go under. But if it went under, there was like a chain of events that would happen that would cause JP Morgan Chase to be in some deep shit. And and the deal was, it was on a Thursday, he got the call. And if the deal fell through or thing happened, it was going to happen by Monday. So it was very quick. They had like 72 hours to figure it out. He immediately got like 1,200 people. They paid them overtime, had them work through the weekend. And they had to put together a deal where they actually sold off a part of the business. They had to do a merger and acquisition, review the books, do their due diligence, and handle a wire for an acquisition. They had to do like this crazy like thing to save a $32 billion situation that would have been terrible. And he goes, that was one weekend. Yeah, and I've been CEO for like a decade. And he goes, so, when we save the company $32 billion, am I entitled to a, $160 million bonus, which is like, whatever it is, a 0.58% or whatever small percent, most people would never be able to handle that. They'd go, it's after 5:00. Can we get to this Monday?
Yeah. The standard protocol, the attorneys and everything, that'll be 6 months.
Right.
Which is a real thing.
Right.
If people that have never been through a private acquisition deal or talk to people that have, it's like, think that it's just, you kind of settle on a deal and sign paper. There's due diligence and it's months and months of attorneys going back and forth and it's all this stuff. So to get anything done, let alone several mergers before the real merger can take place and argue with attorneys and all that, that's just a crazy. People, like Jim Rohn used to say, if you want to make more, then become worth more to the marketplace.
That's right.
And it's a foundation of capitalism that I surely believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Like, okay, it's not equal. Yeah, but neither is the value that you're bringing to the world, if we're just being really honest. And not like you're worth less as a human, like is this person's life worth more than that person's life on an intrinsic level? Not going there, but saying you're talking about pay inequality. Pay inequality. Well, how about value inequality to the marketplace? That guy, anybody in the world would want to hire him to run their company.
Right.
Anybody.
Right.
Almost. Maybe not, Elon, because he's, slightly, his next step. But the guy or gal that's, driving Uber, great. It's a good job. Not knocking Uber drivers. Great. But there's a lot of people that can do that.
Right. Exactly. And so, that's really what it comes down to is like, how much, what do they say? A diamond is nothing but a rock that's been put under intense pressure that didn't crack. So how much pressure can you handle? Some people get overwhelmed when there's too many things on their schedule. Some people have a $32 billion acquisition to get done by Monday.
If you want something done, ask a busy person.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the number one common denominator. Even I'll never forget. Here's one funny story too. I'll add this. When I interviewed Grant and Ed, one time I interviewed them. So I've interviewed them a few times. Grant's been a client of ours in LA. We take care of some of his production stuff. And one time when I interviewed him, Ed and Grant were in the Hollywood Hills. This was maybe the second time or something. And it's me, them, all these cameras. We're like smoking cigars. In my head, I'm like, how is this my real life? Like
hanging out with Ed Milet.
Yeah. Like 2 years ago, I didn't know these people. Now all of a sudden they're asking me questions. I connected Ed with some other people. He's asking me for advice on how to interview this guy. In my head, I'm like, what the? Even Cardone called me. That there was a viral interview with Cardone and Jordan Belfort. We have a video. My team took a video. Cardone called me, and he goes, hey bro, he goes, Belfort wants me to be on his podcast. You think I should do it? And I remember going. First off, in my head, I'm like, why the hell is Grant Cardone asking me if he should be like, who the hell am I? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even have gas money to show up there a year ago.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I was like, but I was like, act as if. I was like, well, why do you want to be on the show? I'm like talking to him like a friend, and and I have all these guys' numbers. Like, it's crazy to think about, but yeah, it's like crazy stuff like that happened. I forgot where I was going. I was going to say something prior, but
should he go on the show or not? What was your advice? Did you say should he go on the show?
I told him what's the best case scenario upside, what's the worst case, and I asked him if the best case is worth the worst case, and then he ended up doing it. And they actually bring me up in the episode.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I've seen the episode, but I didn't know you then. So I'll have to go.
Yeah, they bring me up like 3/4 of the way through. I start getting all these messages and DMs from people. And in my head, I'm like, how the hell is my name? Am I even remotely in the line? I'm forever the kid who's like, I always associate with the kid who dreamed about doing this. The kid who was driving there in Beverly Hills was like a low gas thing, was like hoping to get there. Texting my sister to borrow an Apple Pay for gas on the way back, Like I forever associate with that because I never forgot just the dreams inside of that hurt kid. But those were the types of relationships I had. I was going to go somewhere. He ended up doing the show, but I was going to go somewhere prior. What I was saying.
Before you go there, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just can't get over something that I'm just loving it. And there's certain elements of myself that have this trait, but I want to amplify it because of this conversation with you. Is just the act as if and just own it. Like you said, who am I? So those thoughts obviously go through your head.
Yeah.
But do you think like these NBA athletes that are 19 years old or 22 years old that are in the NBA, you don't think that they feel that way when they step on the court too? You don't think that some of these actors that had hit their first big movie go, how am I sitting in this room? Like,
yes.
Of course, I think that's just a human experience.
Yes.
And the fact is, some people will deny that.
Yeah.
So they got the call. They got the call from Grant Cardone, or they got the call from, God himself to do something big, right? Whatever. And instead of just saying, you have those thoughts and going, I'll just answer it, act as if,
right?
Because that's who you really are. They'll go, that's not me, and they'll say like, oh, and they'll F it all up.
Yes,
because it's like self-sabotage to let me go back to my little old me, who I am.
Yes.
And that's just a fascinating concept. And people say, oh, don't fake it till you make it. That's terrible advice. Okay, I understand on some things, don't fake it. I understand why they would go that direction.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, act as if until it becomes your reality.
Yes, and also too, I think what's helped me is by staying connected to that kid. So I just stay grateful.
Mm-hmm.
So I stay so grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Like even while we're sitting here talking, I have thoughts of gratitude of like, what would have happened if I didn't, right? What would have happened if you didn't get into insurance?
Right.
What would you be doing right now? What would how easily that could have been the reality, right?
What if I wouldn't have met my wife at my friend's funeral?
Yeah, what if you didn't go to that funeral?
What if you what if you're sick that day? Like
a million things. Yeah. Even to here's another thing too, is like, I was talking about the Grant thing. I remember now is like, I was tripping out that I was there, but we were hanging out while the team was setting up equipment and stuff. And I realized even those guys have it. Grant and Ed were talking. I was sitting with them, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, and they're smoking cigars, playing cards. I don't have cards. And
like,
Cardone,
how do I smoke this cigar?
And Cardone loves to F with people. Like, funny. I actually like Cardone. I know people have differing opinions, but he's always been great to us. And we're sitting down, and guys are like playing poker, smoking cigars, and Grant's like, Omar, you want to get in on this game? And this is like very early on. So I was like, oh, I don't really gamble much, but I'm just here to support. In my head, I'm just grateful to be at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, how much money you got? Straight up. He goes, how much money you got?
You're like, in life or my pocket?
Yeah. And I said something like, not as much as you, or something playful or whatever. And he goes, take out your account, show me. He goes, you got your wallet? Like, straight up. He's messing with me, but he's just like putting me on the spot. And I have Ed Milet right there, and his wife Elena's there. The kids are there. Like, I literally have a video of this. Actually, I'll show you after.
I can't wait to see it. You're like, I better just do what he said.
Yeah. So he's like, show me your account. I was like, I forget what I said. I was just like, oh man. I was like, no, I'll be too embarrassed. Like, I was joking around or whatever. And he goes, how much you got? Like $1,000 or something? A couple $100,000? Like what? Like and then he's like, no, I'm just messing with you, But he's doing that. And then they're just talking. I'm a fly on the wall. And this is right before he was gonna do his 10X event in believe it was the Marlins Stadium in Florida. I think it was like, this was like 2018 or 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about the fact that I think it was like 35,000 seats available or something like that. And then Ed was like, Ed was asking him, he's like, how the hell are you going to fill up 35,000 seats? And he goes, I don't know, bro, but I commit first, figure out the rest later. And I was like, Grant, I was like, so you don't know? He goes, I got no clue. I was like, how many have you sold? And Jared was there, his right hand. And he asked Jared, he goes, like 100. And he goes, we sold like 150. And he was like 2 months away. And in my head, I'm like, this guy has sold 150 tickets and he's sitting here laughing, smoking cigars, joking about how he has no clue, about how he's going to sell 35,000, tickets for $500 plus a pop. And they only ended up selling like something like 10-ish thousand or something like that. But I mean, still,
But like
relatively
10,000
speaking,
people in a stadium is no small feat. So like,
yeah, it's no small feat. But that's the thing, is like hearing him accept the fact that I don't know.
might not work.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas most people would be like, we can't rent that venue. It's too big. We don't want to take the calculated risk. Grant is very much that. So when you see the behind, it's one thing when you see it when it works and then they tell you the epic success story.
Yeah.
But when you're behind the scenes before the event, hearing the guy in charge talking like, yeah, I have no clue. We're trying ads. You got any ideas? He's like smoking a cigar, playing cards.
Yeah.
Obviously he had some liquid capital, so he could afford to take the loss at that time, I'm sure, in a worst case. But still, when you're behind the scenes and you hear that, you realize, oh, they're playing the same game we are.
Right. Just different
level.
scale. Yeah.
Even I just interviewed him a month ago, and he teased at the fact, I think he just announced this yesterday, that he might be running for governor of California.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, my wife disagreed with me. All my attorneys disagree with me. My COO, my CMO, my CFO, my CTO, like everybody disagreed with me, my entire staff, my right hand. And he goes, but I just feel like it's the right thing to do. So he's stopping the 10X events, and he's reallocating his focus, and he's going to be running for public office in California.
Yeah. And just figure it out later.
Yeah. And I told him, I was like, are you worried about it? He goes, yeah. He goes, we'll just figure it out. He goes, 10X. He goes, I'm the 10X guy.
Well, when you get to a certain point, like even look at Trump. He's out there, gets shot in the, he's shot in the ear, iconic moment. I mean, you can't love him or hate him. You can't not be like, that's a
resilient
great moment of just like overcoming triumph. Literally got shot and is out there pumping his fist.
Yeah. With blood running down and the American flag up top. Yeah.
You are a wimp if you don't at least enjoy that like moment.
Yeah.
And you go, and you're looking at his life, and that's just a man that's playing for everything. He's just playing all out because, again, life is fleeting.
Right.
What's going to happen? They're going to shoot me. I don't know if that's his attitude or not, but I have to imagine by looking at the actions he's taking, what's the worst case scenario? I get shot.
Yeah.
Like 8% of presidents have gotten shot and killed. Like, whatever. I'll figure it out. Like, it is what it is. I got nothing left to live for other than like the biggest stage on the planet. I think it just kind of gets to that point eventually where it's like, for Grant, I'm sure he's in the same boat. Yeah, I've already done all this stuff.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Make another billion? Like, okay, like that's cool. But like, I think governor of California, and that sounds pretty cool. I could make some change.
Yeah.
Let's go for that.
That's what he told me. I was like, what's making you run? He goes, I don't know, ADD. Like he's joking around, he's just joking around. Like Grant also doesn't I've only seen him on limited occasions, maybe 10, 15 times we've hung out, but over the last 5 years. But he's very imperfect action all day. He's the type who literally will be talking to, I've seen it. He'll be talking to Jared, his right hand, Jared Glant, shout out Jared. And he'll have an idea for something like, oh, let's do a pop-up. He's flying into California. Hey, let's do a pop-up mastermind and sell tickets for $1,000 and get 100 people in and make a quick $100,000, just whatever. And he'll just be like, hey guys, we're doing a pop-up at this place, click the link below, and he'll just take an Instagram story, post it up and have a link or whatever, and he'll just post it and then figure out the venue and then have the assistant email everybody who bought a ticket. And and he's just like that. Whereas most people would be like, okay, let's plan for Q3. Yeah. We're going to have 100 people at $1,000. Grant is very just imperfect action, wing, wing, wing. And the volume of that, things happen.
It's a common theme that we've been talking about this entire episode, which I know I'm keeping you pretty long here, but we'll wrap it. But you're looking at all these people, these stories, John Paul DeJoria, Grant Cardone, Ed Milet, and even your own life, and you're looking at your story, even my story, and I'm going, it is just taking those actions faster. Velocity matters.
Right.
Speed matters. Speed to decision. From the idea to implementation, the more we can close that gap, the more successful you'll be in life. Because I sat around, it was actually after I got this team around me that knows more in certain categories than me, of course. If you're a business owner, you should have people like that. And I started thinking like, okay, I'm pretty good at marketing. I'm not like the best.
Right.
Like I'm not the best copywriter. I'm not the best funnel builder. I'm not the best salesperson on the planet, although I'm pretty good. I'm not the best at it, right? So I kind of was tripping out. Like, why me?
Right.
I built a $50 million company or whatever. And it's like, okay, we got the jet, we got the houses. Why me then? What am I the best at? And it sounds funny. Like I had this insecurity.
What do you think it is? Like maybe you won't admit it to people, but if you had to, maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't feel comfortable sharing.
No, I'm happy to.
But if you had to, this might sound effed up or whatever, but like if you had to put a reason of why you think God put you in the position where something like that happened, just your intuitive pulse, ego aside, everything aside, your gut reaction. Drop the PR answer. Not saying you would have one, but I'm just saying your intuitive gut check of why you think you're in that situation.
Just because I'm honestly a little batshit crazy when it comes to just taking the action and hoping it works out. And I think, like, I resonate with those stories so much. That's why I'm hanging on to it. I'm like, I think that is the answer to why we've had some early success faster than some and slower than some.
And the right vehicle? Because a lot of people could have that.
Yeah.
But would you say a critical component of that was also the vehicle?
Yeah. And I say that I'm crazy in the sense that, like, I take calculated risk, but the way I look at it is if something, let's say you're going to buy a company, like a big decision, right? You're going to buy this company and acquire it. If it takes, let's say, 40 hours of due diligence, 40 hours of real due diligence to make a good decision,
right?
Most people will make that decision 30 minutes at a time. So they'll spend 30 minutes for 2 or 3 months, 30 minutes a day, and then they get distracted. And, okay, I'll think about it, and I'll talk to the next person, and blah, blah, blah. And it's 2 months later. I'm like, it takes 40 hours. How about we just clear the next 3 days? I don't sleep. I don't think about anything else except for seeing the kids and my dedicated time. But like, hardly can sleep, hardly can think. And we'll take the same amount of due diligence. So it's a good decision. And there's a calculated risk there. And we're just going to commit to it on the spot. So I'm 3 days into the process instead of some people being 3 months into the process. And it's just an unfair advantage. You're not smarter. You're not more educated. I didn't go to college.
You're
just compressing that time frame. Ed Milet talks about that. How can you just compress the time frame, make the same good, well thought out decision? You just did it in 3 days of consistent thinking about it instead of 3 months. By the time that person takes step one, if they even are motivated to do it 90 days later, I've already taken the first step, screwed it up, done it again, screwed it up again, found the right way, and we're on our way.
Immersion.
Yeah.
No, that's a great way to put it.
Very quick action and not being so worried about the result. And, like it's easier now. But like I put myself back in that situation. We sold for multiple 8 figures. I put $0 in the stock market. That's not sound advice. I don't give anybody else that advice.
Right.
But I'm like, I'm going to put the onus on me to figure it out.
The S&Me 500.
I've never heard that. I like that. The S&Me 500.
Yeah.
So that's why, and I'm very inspired by these stories that you're telling of all these people. Last question for you. What are you, Omar, most excited about? You got a lot of things to be excited about in your life.
Yeah.
Just personally, what are you most excited about the next 12, 24 months, whatever?
Yeah, I'm most excited about transcending my own beliefs, meaning who else can I get next, right? For me, like, yes, I love doing it for the audience, but I also love doing it for me. Because, one of my dreams is to interview Trump in the Oval Office, just to say that I went from, a rock bottom breakup of, my life coach saying, hey, if life was perfect, who would you interview and what would you do? And thinking I go from that, my first video on YouTube was like with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Right. And to think that I would go from that to interviewing the leader of the free world and getting as close as I've gotten, but actually making that happen to me would be the ultimate, like, whew. I also kind of secretly have this like motivation to get all these big names out of the way. So by the time I'm like 35, 40, I'm kind of like done with the anxiety of it, because it is a very anxious type of thing of like, all right, are we going to get David Blaine? Like now we're talking to like David Blaine. We're going to be going to Atlanta to do something with Rick Ross. Like we're doing all these cool things. A big part of me, like as much as I love it, this is actually how I how I get over the imposter syndrome is like, I don't actually emotionally associate till it's done. That's been huge for me.
Because like it could go away. It could get rescheduled.
It could go away. It could get rescheduled. I could psych myself out. I could worry about it. So even with Tate, I remember I didn't get excited until we clicked publish on YouTube. When we got it, when we confirmed we're going to fly to Romania, I was nervous out of my mind. And like there's all these different things, but I didn't tell anybody. I didn't so I contain excitement and enthusiasm until we film it, we edit it. Because I've had times where we film something, the files get corrupted, right? Christian behind the scenes knows how that can go, right?
Christian, don't let that happen.
I've had times where, the audio had an issue, where this had, and I get so excited and I tell people and stuff. So now I keep it under the radar. Let's just go there, be gracious, meet the people, add value, do the interview, film it, edit it, get the thumbnail title, upload it. I control it as much as possible. Then when we click publish, then I get excited.
It's not over till the fat lady sings.
Correct. Same thing with, I've heard a lot of people have that with when they're selling their company, because how many times they're going through acquisition, it's 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. And then it's month 17, the company goes, you know what? Or the stock market changes or COVID happens or something happens. And then boom, the deal falls through. And you are over there calculating how much you'd make on the multiple where you buy real estate, how much the jet you want it. Like you're running all the numbers of what you would do if, and then just like that. So
it's not over until the money's in the bank wire hits the account.
Then get excited. But yeah, so that's over the next 12, 24, 36 months. It's just more and more epic names, helping more and more people, and getting in better shape, honestly, personally for me. I focused so much on like all this stuff that, my health and my sleep probably have been sacrificed. So getting better on that front of things, and just doing, in the great words of my cousin, David, who's actually the grandson of my uncle David.
Oh, cool.
Doing fewer things better.
Doing fewer things better. Omar, you have given so much storytelling that have taught lessons. I personally have taken so much out of this. I just want to say absolutely thank you. Where can people that are watching this, where can they find you? Where should they follow you online?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. They can find me by Googling my name or YouTube searching Omar Elattar, the Passionate Few podcast, or on Instagram, Omar the Rockstar. And stay tuned because we have epic episodes coming out soon, including one with your boy, Joshua Lustig.
Thanks, Omar. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.